All right, before we take this next drink of adult beverage here, Maker's Mark, we've got the good doctor, Ernesto Medina here. Welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
So I want to get right up on that bad boy right there. I can turn up the gain a little bit if you want to. You good there?
Better?
That's tremendous, man.
All right.
Got that radio voice. So we are here tonight to talk a little bit about your chiropractic work, talk a little bit about jiu-jitsu, shoot the shit a little bit, and maybe talk a little about head injuries, concussions, that sort of thing.
Definitely.
All right. So you've been in practice a while now, and I've known you through One World for a number of years, and you've treated quite a few athletes over there. Your kind of specialty now is sort of putting us back together, and so we roll around, you choke us all out, then we come in, you fix us. So it's kind of a conveyor belt of sorts.
Right?
We appreciate
Keeps me in business.
Exactly. So you got to stick with the jiu-jitsu, man. So so how did this come about? Like how long have you been in practice now?
So this is actually my 4th year in practice, and this year is actually my 10th year of jiu-jitsu.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm a purple belt, but I started training out in San Diego.
Nice.
And
Nice.
so I've been here at One World in the Bay Area with Mike just about 7 years, I would say.
Nice. So you were there basically when you guys moved into the Union City place. So just like right around that time period.
Around that time, yeah.
So I think he got that back in 2007, something like that.
Okay, yeah.
That was like right after he got his black belt. Like,
Ah, okay. Didn't know that.
yeah, so I think he got his black belt from Dave Camarillo in 2007, and then they picked up that location. They started splitting it off from the CrossFit bit.
Nice.
Now we're over in Newark. So full disclosure here for any bias with the One World stuff, I'm a black belt under Mike Prudencio also. So any Mike Prudencio or Pro One World stuff is not a coincidence. We train there. It's a good place to be. So if you're in the East Bay or Bay Area in general, if you want to check out the school, you should check out the school. And if you aren't at the open mats on Sunday nights, I don't know what you're doing, but you're missing out because it's the best one in the Bay.
Yeah, they're killer.
I mean,
Good training.
So basically every competitor in the area, makes an appearance there at one point or another, and a lot of times all at the same time, right?
Yeah, I love Sunday open mats. I wish I could go more often, but scheduling problems.
Right on. So what would you say is the most common injury you're seeing? Like when you get a jiu-jitsu guy in there, you just, tuned them up, purple belt, you got your chokes, got your arm locks, got your everything, screwed up the spine a little bit. Like what's the most common injuries you're seeing now?
Well, the jiu-jitsu guys have I see a lot of neck injuries from getting stacked. I see a lot of low back issues. And I'd say rotator cuff issues. A lot of rotator cuff issues from the Kimuras and the Americanas, just going a little too far and, spasms out that rotator cuff pretty badly.
It's funny. The shoulder is only really efficient in very particular angles, basically right in front of you.
Yeah.
And anywhere but directly in front of you, kind of like the way a T-Rex is built anyway. Your shoulder just isn't very efficient, and it's so easy to tear all that connecting tissue. And
oh yeah.
A lot of guys with what I've learned, because I've messed up my rotator cuff like a long time ago through weightlifting and stuff, because I was trying to I've always sort of floated between the weights and the jiu-jitsu thing, but earlier on, I had a rotator cuff injury, and I was told that there's a bone called the acromion that sits somewhere in the shoulder region, and if you there's 2 types. There's like a type A and type B, and the second one is like a hook shape instead of a bow.
Yes.
And if you have that hooked acromion, it's like more prone to tearing or micro tears of the rotator cuff.
Kind of frays right through your supraspinatus tendon right at the top. Yeah.
See, I just got smarter. Supraspinatus. So
yeah,
at that travel, like once you go way out here, the kind of flex thing, or you go overhead, that's when you're going to start seeing that guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually really big in even engineers.
Yep.
The non-athletes, the engineers, because of just poor posture. You know, the poor posture, your chest collapses forward, your shoulders roll forward, and 15, 20 years of doing that work, you're just slightly fraying that tendon over and over again until it tears.
Yeah, what you notice is you have the gym guy or the computer guy that starts working out, and they just wind up doing a bunch of bench press, and guys that do mostly upper body work that sort of have that computer posture, and everybody has it. I mean, a lot of guys hunch forward because even if you aren't a computer guy necessarily, if you just do a lot of upper body work and don't really work the back,
exactly,
you're going to be pulled forward. And doing those mobility exercises to like open the chest up. So what I've learned is trying to kind of do not quite a bridge, but I'll put my palms on the floor and sort of elevate my hips and then sort of walk forward a little bit to sort of open up the chest a little bit.
Yeah.
So if I don't do that, I'm the rotator cuff guy.
Yeah.
Like I'll tear the crap out of mine.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, big time.
So I always see people like every once in a while at the gym, like they're doing the band exercise, the rotator cuff stuff, the pulling from in to out and out to in. What I noticed though is like most people will get those exercises and they're so boring they don't do them.
Yeah,
and it never heals.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You have to stay on it constantly, and posture is a huge issue. You mentioned working the upper body so much. I like to call those the bar muscles.
Yeah.
The Friday night before you go out, chest, biceps, and the abs.
Oh yeah, that's the only time I do a single curl. I don't do any of it. I don't do any I don't do any curls. I'll do pull-ups, I do push-ups, I do bench. Because I feel like, the bench press, it's a compound exercise, like the push-up, you should have that. But I really don't do many isolation exercises, and I might find that to my detriment in certain things eventually. But for jiu-jitsu, the compound stuff that's where the money is.
Absolutely, 100%. I've really stepped away from the isolation weight training exercises. I do a lot of kettlebell stuff. I like kettlebell stuff. A lot of core, a lot of hips, strengthening, and a lot of balance stuff.
Okay.
I CrossFitted for quite a while because when we were with One World, sharing space with the CrossFit guys, it was right there. I love weightlifting. I figured I'd get into it, and I CrossFitted for a number of years. But I think my jiu-jitsu has never been better until I actually backed away from the CrossFit, focused on working accessory muscles, right? Don't work too much the flexors, but the back, the glutes, the hamstrings, all the posterior chain muscles. Because if you think about it, that engineer posture of the rolled shoulders, flexed forward, head forward, that's essentially what we train in jiu-jitsu, right? The guard.
Yep.
The guard is a sitting position on your back, right? So your hips are flexed, your knees are bent, we're crunching forward, and you're just reinforcing that poor posture mechanism. And I always tell the guys that I work with, the grapplers, that you need to do other accessory work. I think that's why the Diaz brothers are actually so successful. I mean, you always see them training for triathlon, swimming, biking, running. I think that's really important for your longevity in jiu-jitsu.
Oh, absolutely. The mobility work is huge. I really enjoy doing compound exercises. I'll do sort of 6-week blocks of just trying to. I do some powerlifting. I can't squat that heavy. I've got some disc issues, so I'm not really. I physically could lift more, but I'm just not comfortable. Even though the bar isn't directly on my neck, but it's a compression rather than I do a lot to try to decompress my spine. So then by loading up with,
exactly
nearly 400 pounds on my back, it's a lot. So deadlift, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I just hit 500 pounds, and I was stuck in the 400s for the better part of a year.
Nice.
So I was very excited about that. I hit that. I do a lot of kettlebell stuff. But generally I'll do 6 weeks of trying to reach my max. So as much as I can do on deadlift or whatever, one of these compound exercises I'm doing, be it front squat, back squat, whatever. And then 6 weeks I'll do more kind of maintenance circuit stuff. Yeah. Where it'll be kind of medium weight, but I'm just trying to bang out a ton of reps. I'll put together some basic circuit that I'll do would be 10 deadlifts and then 20 kettlebell swings and then plank for a little bit or push-ups, then plank or something. And just, I usually do the plank last, and that'll be kind of my active recovery. And then I'm really focusing on deep breathing and just sort of patience. And just the breathing's a huge part of it.
Absolutely.
Another exercise I kind of like is this pausing squat.
Oh, yes.
So when you get to the bottom, you just, count 5 with your breath in, then explode up. And I feel like this one really, it builds explosiveness, and it helps you kind of work on that breathing, technique.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Going back to where we started, let me ask you this. Have you ever been to a chiropractor?
Yeah. I've been to. So I used to see Hank quite a bit.
Okay.
He moved his practice like to Cupertino, and it's not that far, but there's kind of traffic there. It used to be right down the block, which was great. So I've known Hank for years. We started Half Gracie together like in 05, well, he was before that, but I started in 05.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So we were Mountain View Half guys. So
yeah,
we came over later, right? Once Batata basically went off, and cause he was the instructor in Mountain View.
Yeah.
When he went to open his own gym, it was far, and I looked around and who was left. I didn't know anybody. So when, then they opened AKA Sunnyvale, and I was like student number 1.
Oh, very cool.
They didn't have mats, anything. I met Alex and Bobby Southworth, and I just gave them my credit card. Just write the number down and call me when you're ready to open.
Very cool.
But yeah, and I did pro wrestling for a minute. And so before every event, we had the chiropractor there, and they adjusted every possible thing.
Oh, I didn't know that. Very cool.
We needed it.
Yeah.
The guy would volunteer for whoever was working.
Oh, that is so cool.
Because all you're doing is falling over and over, and it's a worked match. It's not, it's kind of an improv, and stuff goes wrong.
All the time, I imagine.
So the next day you'd get up, and of course there's concussions and everything. But they'd adjust the hips. Every last thing you can think to have adjusted. But
very cool. Very cool. So you're used to that. You know what to expect with that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm in need of adjustment. Actually, I got to come see you.
All right, we'll hook you up after the show, maybe.
Fuck yes.
Yeah. So that's a very typical experience with a chiropractor, right? Adjust, or they call pop or crack the joints, putting the joints back into place, or oftentimes the joints get stuck, they rotate, and you actually remobilize it again, right? So you feel more loose, you feel more mobile. And so I personally, because I was into jiu-jitsu way before I even considered becoming a chiropractor, I focused a lot of my education on treating these jiu-jitsu type of injuries.
Okay.
So in addition to the adjustments, I trained in a lot of soft tissue techniques, soft tissue therapies. The biggest one being ART, or it's called active release techniques.
Okay.
And so what I do is I incorporate the adjustments with the soft tissue work, and we go over every injury of muscle, of ligament, of tendon, even fascial connections in between muscles. And then we learn relative motion between opposing muscles, and we basically train on how to feel and palpate that. And I think that's why I've had so much success with a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys.
Okay, so is this mostly the lower back? Is this upper back?
Everything, whole body, rotator, wrist issues, finger issues, elbow issues. Jiu-jitsu guy is notorious for the popped elbow.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I've got one now. I mean, I had surgery on my elbow a number of years ago, and it's just been ringing like crazy for like post-training. This is from 10, 11 years ago, but just post-training, I haven't been arm locked in a long time, but the inside of my elbow has just been ringing like crazy. I'm coming home like, hey, I need ice, I need something.
Yeah. You need some soft tissue work in there, probably.
Oh, for sure. It's just this like dull, throbbing pain. That's just, and it's not after weights. It's after jiu-jitsu.
And what was the surgery?
So I got caught in an Americana during drilling. Like, it was a brand new white belt, and the guy just yanked the hell out of it, and it wound up tearing the ligament. So the one where there's a video, but it's really not capturing what I'm trying to do. But basically, if you have your elbow at your hip and your fist kind of pointed out towards your knee, and right here, this sort of, it would just flop wide.
Wow,
it was,
really?
Yeah, it was
just unstable.
completely unstable. So
wow.
I got the cadaver ligament, and they hooked that up.
Man.
But they hit the lower ulnar nerve in the process, so it put my ring finger and pinky basically to sleep. It was like pins and needles, sort of nerve, whatever, crazy, weird pain, numbness it's still numb. This is years later.
Really? Never got better?
I can absolutely tell they're different.
Man.
Like they're, so
Sounds like the surgeon nicked it or something.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I had to go for a second surgery.
Oh, really?
I woke up in excruciating pain, and they remedied that where they just sent me home with a big bag of pills, and you'll be fine. And then month after month, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm still on these fucking things. They're not even asking me if it hurts anymore.
Right?
They tricked me.
They don't want to know.
They tricked me. Exactly. They go to the pain management specialist, and the pain management specialist just wants to, whatever.
Don't get me started on that one. Yeah.
I after you watch these, what is this movie? The Oxycontin Express.
Oh man,
have you seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I'm a big fan of a lot of those documentaries.
Oh, it's sick. It's like it's like Food Inc., but the pill mill version of it, because Florida was notorious for pumping out these pain management clinics, which were one-stop shops where people were coming from out of state, and they would go to multiple ones because there was no real DEA check to see if you had additional prescriptions.
Yeah.
So a guy would come down from like out of state, he'd fly in from Atlanta or any of the neighboring states, and then hit like 6 of them, because it would be a pharmacy and a doctor, and you're in pain. Wow, it must be chronic pain. Yeah. They'd send you home with a big bag of OxyContin and Somas or whatever. Then they'd hit the next one. So they actually had these police task force set up at the border in the neighboring states, right? Just picking people off, pulling them over with thousands of pills.
Oh my God!
They would send.
I didn't know that.
They would send buses of elderly people down with like promising a free trip to Florida.
Yeah.
And in exchange for them going to the clinic and hooking them up with the pills, and then they'd go off and sell them on the black market.
Did you see that documentary, Bigger, Stronger,
Faster? Yeah.
Yes, that
was,
one.
Chris Bell, right?
Yeah. There was 2 parts, wasn't there? Part 1, part 2.
I think so.
There was a follow-up, I believe, afterwards, and his brother had died, I think, overdosed.
Oh. Okay, the Bigger, Stronger, Faster. That was the supplement / steroid one.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, the supplement industry is weird, man.
It is.
It's like you're looking for this product that actually does what it says on the label, and if it actually does what it says on the label, it's illegal.
Right.
Like you can't have it. So there's a lot of stuff at GNC. Like you see the fighters popping for all these substances, and you have to scrutinize whether it's a valid thing now, because a lot of these things actually contain stuff that'll make you, fail drug tests for different amphetamines and stuff, and all kinds of different.
When I was in high school, actually, there was a supplement at Max Muscle.
Okay.
Over the counter supplement, no big deal, and
is it a super draw?
It was called Trenabol.
Okay.
Familiar with it?
It sounds
probably pretty similar to Super Ball.
So Super Draw, there was a name for it. It was like a pro hormone or something.
Okay.
But it was basically a steroid.
Yeah. So this supplement Trenabol, my buddy got on it. We wrestled in high school, so we got big into the weightlifting in high school. Of course, to have big muscles and get all the girls, right? That was our dream.
It's pretty common,
right?
Pretty common thread.
And so we were looking for any supplements we could get our hands on, and he started this supplement Trenabol, and man, the thing was amazing. You could lift, get an amazing pump, like hard pump, and not fatigue, not get tired. Keep going. And a couple years later, it turns out it was illegal, or became illegal.
Yeah.
Which was that kind of funny.
Well, that's what actually happens. The ones that work wind up having dope in them, or having something. It's like, I wonder how
they work too well.
Because it's a supplement, so it's really not scrutinized by the FDA until people start noticing it. Like it's like the generic the Viagra pills, like the dick pills that they sell at the gas station.
Yeah, they
actually have like Cialis and Viagra in them. That's why, and they're like $10-$20 a piece.
Oh.
That's why they sell. There's people addicted to them. They work.
Yeah.
The guy what's the guy from Joe Rogan Experience? The guy who the producer, Jamie. Yeah, Jamie. Jamie's like, he talks about him all the time on there.
Yeah.
He's full on into him. He knows all the different ones.
Man, did not know that.
He called it out, but so when I was in high school, all the football players, weightlifters and stuff, like I went to high school in West Texas.
Okay.
So the Friday Night Lights movie and the hell is it? Varsity Blues. That was about my high school.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, that was how insane, like just into football this town. It was religion to them. We had a pro level stadium for the high school. Like this thing was sick.
Yeah.
Midland Lee was one school, then Midland, the Midland High School. There's Bulldogs and the Rebels, and then there was the Odessa Permian team, and the rivalry between this. Like there's movies. There's a TV show about it. Like Friday Night Lights. It's a real show.
Yeah.
And I remember in like 9th grade, the big thing everybody was on was this stuff called androstenedione.
Yeah.
And it was I guess pills that everybody was taking, and that you can get it at GNC. I think GNC was like the only shop in town because this is the middle of nowhere in West Texas, like maybe 100,000 people if you're lucky.
Okay.
And one of my friends, and he's a year ahead of me in high school. He's like, "Let's go lift weights." All right, we're gonna lift weights. Like, all right, we're gonna go to the community college and get in, lift weights. Get a good, they get the wrestling whatever has a nice weight room or whatever. Yeah. All right, cool. So we went over there, start lifting weights, and he's like, "I take one of these." And it's androstenedione.
Yeah.
Wow. I was like rage monster asshole, but I could throw. I just keep putting plates on the damn thing. I think I was like 14 or something, lifting like 225. I'm like, what are we doing? I was completely like I couldn't move the next day.
Yeah,
that it was the most I'd ever lifted in my life up to then.
Stuff's scary, man. That's why people get addicted to it.
Oh, I can absolutely see how people would get stuck on it because it works.
Yeah,
but you get this crazy rush. The pump you get afterwards, it's insane, but it's very illegal now.
Yeah.
Very illegal.
I imagine. Like you said, if it works too well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised stuff like creatine and protein is not banned now too. I mean, it's
right
because it obviously works. It does something, but man, so one of the things we talked about earlier, and it's this hot topic. You have Will Smith making a movie about it. It's concussions, right?
It's a good movie. Did you see it?
Tell the truth, I haven't. I've seen. I feel like I've seen the news stories around it, and I've seen the trailer enough times where like I feel like I have a good idea of how it went, but I haven't seen it yet. I saw Suicide Squad, so I was holding out for another Will Smith movie for a little bit. Man, I'm pretty sure the concussion one's better than Suicide Squad, though.
I heard it was not that great.
Suicide Squad?
Yeah. I still want to see it. I haven't seen it yet.
Without going too far like into Suicide Squad, because I really want to talk about concussions, but it had good qualities. Like there were good parts to it.
Okay.
Like Viola Davis is great as Amanda Waller. If you follow like any of this Justice League stuff, like she plays like the government sort of anyway, so this government person that sort of oversees the Suicide Squad. Will Smith was really good in it. Whoever played Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Her character looked good.
Yeah, that came out good, but the Joker, I'm not from East LA, so like that's not my Joker.
Okay.
It was almost like sort of a reimagination of the way Jack Nicholson's Joker was in the '89 Batman, the Tim Burton one.
Yeah.
But like East LA kind of Latino gangster version.
Really?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll like it more than.
I don't like. Have you seen it? Right?
No, but I know that he took that idea off the British group.
Which one?
I'm about to get that. They were in the movie Chappie.
Chappie?
The girl. Have you seen Chappie?
What's Chappie?
Chappie's that robot, and then.
That was a good movie too.
Okay.
It's a South African movie.
Yeah. That one. I'll look it up. You guys keep going.
But do you remember the '89 Batman movie with Tim Burton?
Yeah.
With the Joker and everything?
Yeah.
With Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. It was kind of goofy.
Do you see how he was kind of the gangster instead of being like the sociopath, the way that Heath Ledger was? So there's been like 3 distinct Jokers over the years, like Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age. And this was a reimagination of the Golden Age, like Jack Nicholson version of the Joker, where it was like, he's a gangster, he robs banks, whatever. Okay. But he had a grill. He had Joker tattooed across his stomach, and ha 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 ha, and the theater mask tattooed, and It was a different version.
Like a cholo.
A little. He had he had a gangster thing going, but there was actually a cholo villain, like anti-hero in it. Oh yeah, El Diablo was definitely a cholo.
Oh.
This guy was like straight Mexican gangster from like L.A. and he could like create fire. And his story was like, I guess he accidentally killed his family.
Yeah.
But he's like, I'm cool, homie. I'm never gonna raise a fist again. Like it was like very. He would have fit right in with Fast and Furious if he would have taken like you would have taken out the fire. Like he would have fit right in with the family with Vin Diesel.
Gotcha.
The family.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, it was cool. And that guy, whoever played El Diablo, that character was cool. But there was other shit that was just it was like the movie was kind of disjointed.
Yeah.
A lot of people say that, and I don't like to be like this negative movie critic guy because like I think movie critics are like it's like male Yelpers.
Yeah.
I probably don't like you that much if you do that. Like just complaining about shit just to be negative, because there were parts of the movie I liked, but not the guy that dressed like the crocodile guy. Like I couldn't understand a fucking word he said because he had Killer Croc. He had these prosthetic teeth, so you couldn't understand a fucking thing he said.
Were they crocodile teeth? Or what?
Well, he's like a human crocodile, like a mutant type thing. And there was this guy, this Australian Captain Boomerang. Which isn't like stereotypical at all, like fucking throwing a boomerang. But I couldn't understand him at all. Like it was the accent or something. I couldn't make it out.
Gotcha.
The controversy is that there's a group from South Africa called Die Antwoord.
Die Antwoord?
And basically the director was hanging out or had seen the lead singer Stan Ninja and his girlfriend Yolandi. And basically they're saying that he took the Joker look from Ninja and then the Harley Quinn look from Yolandi. So they stole that idea and used it for Harley Quinn and Joker.
You know what's funny? There's every time they do these movies, right? All you have to do is you just look at sales figures for which comic books people fucking bought a lot of and liked, and there's your storyboard.
Yeah.
Then you just do that. Like stop interpreting it and Hollywoodizing it and changing the shit out of it. Just do what's in the book. And people will like it because you'll at least be able to sell to those fans. And because those are like the diehards that actually like the books, that's a pretty good critical, idea of like what is going to be scrutinized. Like they actually understand the writing and the art. If they can just interpret that directly in Hollywood, it'll get mass appeal. Because if you can please these comic book fans, the rest of the world will fucking follow suit because they're already into it. They're into the content.
For sure.
Nothing to do with concussions.
Nothing.
This is what happens when you're drinking a nice glass of Maker's Mark.
That's right.
Ernesto, concussions, how do we prevent them? How do we diagnose them? Like, break it down, man.
So, all right. So let's go back to the beginnings here. Because as a chiropractor, you wouldn't expect to see a chiropractor to treat your concussion or to evaluate you for post-concussion syndrome or anything like that. So, of course, my background was the jiu-jitsu. So a lot of my therapies, a lot of my training outside of my basic chiropractic education was in treating jiu-jitsu guys, grapplers, fighters. And that's how I got into the soft tissue, which has been great. And I think now the progression onward from there is the head traumas, the concussion issues, which has gotten a lot of attention lately, this year, maybe last year, because all these football players coming out, committing suicide, which is very sad, or having a lot of behavioral issues, and fighters even having crazy outbursts in behavior. And John Jones did that whole thing with stealing a rental car and then crashing it and then taking off. I wondered why would these fighters do this?
What about Chris Benoit?
Yeah.
Remember the WWE guy that killed his family?
Yeah.
They later went back and realized he had the brain damage of like his brain as like a 30-something-year-old man. It was like deteriorated to like an 80-something-year-old man with like dementia.
Yeah.
And
it's insane.
His patented move thing he would do would be to dive off the top rope and land head first, like on the side of his face, but he would do a diving headbutt, like a swan dive onto a ring that's made literally of wood and steel beams. I mean, there's no spring underneath.
Yeah.
I've fallen on these damn things, and you climb those ropes and jump, and head first, fuck that. So he killed his family, and it took a long time because everybody just wanted to demonize it and say, and obviously there's no excuse for it. He killed his family. You don't kill your fucking family.
Right.
But
if you're sane.
Exactly. But they went post-mortem, and they did the brains, study afterwards. So there's a concussion institute that was actually started by a fellow retired pro wrestler. And this guy has done a lot with concussion research.
Yeah.
Man, if you can look at this up, it's like, Sonny, can you look up ex-pro wrestler concussion research? I don't want to say his name wrong, but you should definitely look into this guy because because when this Chris Benoit thing happened, it was a number of years before even the MMA or this is like the precursor.
Wow. So
because of this and some other things, like they kicked in the WWE wellness policy where they test for all kinds of stuff, like the obviously the performance enhancers. They test for, all kinds of recreational drugs. They test, the pot, alcohol, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're also very stringent on concussion and stuff.
Yeah. I see even the UFC now is enforcing if you took a lot of damage in a fight, they don't let you fight again for like 6 months to a year.
Yeah. So, I mean, the latest one people are reading about right now is Conor McGregor because he has the broken foot from kicking, the leg kicks he was throwing on Nate Diaz. So he's a mandatory 6-month suspension.
Yeah.
So, right here, this guy, Chris Nowinski. So, he actually is a Harvard graduate that's a former pro wrestler.
Oh, wow.
But, I think his career, he opened the, Concussion Legacy Foundation, and, he wrote a book called Head Games, and, it got a lot of attention on, CNN and all this stuff, but, I think he actually had quite a few concussions while he was in pro wrestling, but I don't want to, digress or be sidetracked too much into this, but, this is somebody people should probably look into because, before the NFL stuff, before the UFC stuff, this Chris Nowinski guy, he really called it out.
Yeah.
And a lot of the people, even in pro wrestling, they weren't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to hear concussion. No, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
That's not a thing because now, wait, what does our business do? Because of this guy, or in part of it, you remember like the wrestling in the late 90s, everybody's clocking each other with the chairs and stuff. Yeah. Now they don't allow unprotected shots to the head at all. So now you have to put your hands up when you receive a chair shot. It sounds like, okay. Good. Because before people just take a steel chair to the head, they're not gimmick chairs. No. There's a way to do it, but still you're being hit in the head by, a solid object by a 300-pound guy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like I don't want her hitting me in the head with a damn chair like that.
Reals.
That could kill you.
Absolutely.
In real life, that kills people.
Yeah.
And that you sustain this over and over, and you're fucked.
Scary. Yeah. So that was not the natural progression for me to keep working with the fighters, the grapplers. And there's a surprising amount of concussions in jiu-jitsu, flying arm locks, flying triangles that are missed, guys landing on their heads. Judo. I had a 12-year-old girl come in. I was working with her parents, and, we had built that trust, and she was a high-level judo competitor.
Sure.
She got thrown, and as she got thrown, she hit the ground, and then the girl landed on her head and sandwiched her head between the ground and her body and basically bounced off the ground, and immediately headache, nausea. She was pulled out of the tournament. They went to the emergency room. They determined she didn't have a brain bleed. She didn't have a fracture, and they told her, all right, she's good. You can go home, rest, sleep, and, stay off the mats for a couple of days. Right?
Yeah.
And then they followed up, of course, the mom being worried, followed up with the pediatrician. Pediatrician said the same thing, take a week off. She's good to go. And then she brought her to me afterwards. And, I assessed her. I took a look at her. And there's a very simple there's a bunch of simple tests you can do, but I just had her stand on like a balance pad, which is like a firm pillow put on the ground. Have them stand on it, and you have them close their eyes, and see if they can maintain their balance. No joke. As soon as she closed her eyes, she fell sideways. She fell right off the pillow that I had her standing on. I was like, if you can't maintain your balance, you can't get back on the mat, right? You can imagine if she's back on the mat, she has no balance, no coordination. She sustains another head injury, even a light hit in the head or contact with the ground from a throw. It's going to escalate. Symptoms escalate. Severity escalates. Healing time increases. It's dangerous.
Isn't it very common to have like repeat occurrences? Like if so the more concussions you have, like so even if I have a pretty major one, if something previously that would have been very minor and not even a very substantial trauma, isn't it now going to escalate because I've had a worse one previously?
Yes.
Like every smaller one you have since then, like every little one, you're like, I've had this before, it's fine. No, they compound over time.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely. And there's a specific time frame for which if you experience a second or third concussion in that time frame, it escalates exponentially. And I'll break that down a little bit later. Very specific, and it's dangerous. So going back, so since the natural progression for me was going from soft tissue injury to concussions to head injuries for these fighters and grapplers, I started a postgraduate program. Okay. So I'm studying basically neuroscience and functional neurology through the International Association of Functional Neurology and Rehabilitation, right? Okay. For short, IAFNAR. That's what they call it, IAFNAR. And basically, these guys are all, they call themselves functional neurologists. And basically, they work in that fine line between before full-blown disease, but symptomatic, right? People who, for example, can't get a clear diagnosis, but they know they're messed up, they're not functioning right, they can't figure out what's wrong. Medical professionals can't figure out what's wrong. So they call that a functional pathology. Like things are out of whack, things are on their way to progressing to a worse state, and it's not until they get to that really severe state that they're able to be diagnosed. That's very common in Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. Parkinson's disease, it's not able to be diagnosed until you have 80% of neuron death in the brain. Wow. And so it blows my mind because they can't give a firm diagnosis in that until it's already late stage. And so you have to imagine what could have been done from that 0 to 80% to maybe better the situation, improve it, slow down the progression of that disease. And so MS, multiple sclerosis, is another one, really big. And so this is what these guys do, and they're really good at it, my instructors that I have, names Dr. Brandon Brock, and the other one is Dr. Datis Karazian. They are chiropractors. One of them's a nurse practitioner, so they cross-trained. They have degrees in nutrition. I think they're doing PhD programs through Harvard right now in research for traumatic brain injuries. And so they have one of them has a clinic in Dallas, Texas called Cerebrum Health Centers. Okay. And this is what they do. They work a lot with vets with PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, concussions. They presented a case to us, an Alzheimer's case that was, it was amazing. And the stuff they do, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen a video case of it. Because they record for research and teaching purposes, they record these cases and they present them to us and we watch them. And it was amazing. An Alzheimer's case, a woman who couldn't drive anymore, couldn't tell time. One of the trademark tests of Alzheimer's disease is you have a person draw a clock, and with all the numbers on the clock, and then the hands of the clock.
Okay.
And when it's pretty progressed, they can't do that. They don't remember what a clock looks like.
Okay.
And so just that alone, pre and post treatment, in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks they do it, or even less. It's pretty extensive rehab, but she was able to regain function, cognition, and she was able to drive again, which she wasn't able to do. And so this is what these guys do. And they really have a big passion at Cerebrum for vets. A lot of the services they do aren't covered by the VA or by insurance. So they hold a lot of fundraisers for them to kind of supplement the cost of the therapy.
I've noticed there's a lot of red tape surrounding how sort of PTSD and depression and things like that. These sort of ailments that are very common with the vets coming back from overseas. Whether they're in the actual the battlefield itself or whether they're just operating drones.
Yeah.
What I've noticed, what I've seen is that the guys that are in the field in the infantry, they usually get to decompress a little bit before they go home. They send them someplace like Germany, something like that. Mm-hmm. You know, a more lighter tour, and then they come back. Versus the guys operating the drones, they're literally like zooming in, using, because they're not actually out there.
Yeah.
But they click a button and they're doing whatever they're doing. Yeah. There are still casualties, right? Yeah. They're seeing it in high definition on a screen, and then they just go back home. And being desensitized to that degree has to have there has to be a PTSD component to it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they are receiving the same level of care or treatment that the guys out in the infantry, on the front lines, and Marines, the Army guys, whatever. Yeah. The one thing that seems really interesting to me, and it's barely being looked at by the FDA. I mean, it's barely even legal to research, is the psychedelic stuff.
Yeah. So
I know MAPS Institute's finally they've shown a lot of progress with some psychedelics in terms of PTSD, in terms of reversing the symptoms of anxiety, of depression.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of progress with PTSD as well, even addiction. Mm-hmm. So they've got psychedelics, sort of ibogaine, that's shown like 95% success rate treating like opiate addiction, for example.
Wow.
There's clinics outside of the U.S., but inside the U.S., it's like it's looked at as like this very controversial thing.
Oh yeah.
But we have MAPS. It's a multidisciplinary association for psychedelic studies, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
That might be wrong, but it's maps.org, maps.org. They're up in Oakland, I think, is the headquarters. It's a global thing, though.
Yeah.
But right now it's looked at as like, the Nancy Reagan kind of war on drugs back in the 80s, like still like drugs bad.
Yeah.
But alcohol's fine. But if this thing that kills brain cells and like DWIs and stuff, this is good. It's fine because it's industry. We understand it. We whatever.
All those painkillers too.
They're fine. So you can be a white collar heroin junkie and you're just fine. But if you buy it on the street, and there's a lot of heroin overdosing right now in all over the country. In New Jersey, I'm hearing it a lot.
Really?
They rescheduled a lot of the opiates to where they're harder to get, like the Vicodins, the Percocets, the Oxycontins. They're harder to get.
Yeah.
So you're getting people that are instead, even if they were getting them from the doctor, if they're like, hey, I can't prescribe them anymore because they changed the law.
Yeah.
Some of these pill mills that existed can't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So these guys that were hooked on it, now they're going to heroin because it's the same thing. They're able to supplement their same addiction by going to the street, and you're having heroin overdoses because you have guys that are going and it's not a regulated dose.
Right.
I mean, at least with the white collar stuff, like, one pill is one pill. The other thing is guys are going to rehab, then they get out, right? And they go right back to using, and they go right back to the same dose they were using before they went to rehab, and they're overdosing and dying.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that, like, we're having a resurgence of heroin addiction because they rescheduled the stuff that they decided like it was good for us 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But then we're seeing what it does in the field, right? We're seeing, with the repercussions in terms of addiction and death and all the overdose. And you see the pill mills busted before the steroid places were busted, were the athletes.
Yeah.
It was pills first, the WWE guys, the NFL guys. There was, a couple different of these pill mill scandals back in like the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Then it was the steroid doctors. And, now concussion's the buzzword, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of in Dallas, like how is PTSD addressed? Like what kind of stuff are they doing? Like from that perspective?
Yeah. So it's very integrative. It's very complex. What I'd like to do is I want to break down kind of what happens in a concussion.
Okay.
And that'll give a better understanding to why all these symptoms kind of follow it.
Okay.
And then why the treatment is so complex and why pharmaceuticals are so difficult and maybe not as effective for treating it.
Okay.
All right. So I spent a good while working on this here.
All right, cool.
All right.
We got notes.
And I took notes because I want to be very accurate.
Everybody appreciates accuracy,
Right.
man.
All right. So what happens is, one of the things they talk about in that movie Concussion with Will Smith is that the brain is essentially floating, right, in fluid in your skull. And so every time the skull or the head moves, the brain doesn't always necessarily move with it, right? Mm-hmm. So you're getting punched or you get a whiplash in the head, the skull moves back, the brain has a delay in movement and bumps the front of the skull, right? Okay. Same thing when you go forward, okay?
Sure.
So if you imagine in mixed martial arts, getting punched around the eyes, the forehead, all this area, it always bleeds and bruises up. As far as the brain, this is called the frontal or orbital frontal areas. All right. And that area of the brain, specific function, all right. I'll read off a list here of what happens when you damage that area. You get loss in restraint of impulses and desires, emotional instability, depression, anxiety, mental fatigue, decrease in planning and organization, loss of motivation and drive, and even trouble initiating speech, because the main speech center is considered in the frontal lobe. And I was reading an article today on fighters being punch drunk. They call it punch drunk, and you get out of a training session and they can't even talk. They got slurred speech. They're stuttering as if they were drunk. And that's just that motor speech area being affected, right? Being inflamed, all right? Now, in the front, you can imagine in the back, when you whiplash forward and back, the back part of the brain, the occipital lobe, you have the primary visual center, all right? So you can have issues with coordinating visual inputs with hand movements, right? So you see something, you reach for it, and they're not integrating together and you miss. Okay. And you can see how important that is if a fighter goes out and starts training again and he can't coordinate eye and hand together, he's going to get hit a lot more, right? Sure. The other portion in the back that gets affected is the cerebellum. It's called the little brain, all right? Now that is really important. When that gets affected or damaged or bruised or inflamed, you get loss of balance and coordination. You get spinal instability. You get loss of coordination of limb movement. So you can imagine a tremor. Guys, you see Muhammad Ali, he had Parkinson's. Sure. But you can get early tremors that aren't necessarily Parkinson's, but it's a inflammation or damage to that part of the brain, right? Dizziness, disorientation, dysarthria, which is trouble speaking. Now, we talked about in the front, trouble initiating speech. Dysarthria is actually trouble in controlling the muscles of speech, right? So trouble swallowing, trouble controlling the tongue, and all that stuff, All right. And then you get double blurry vision. Okay. And then the last part, so you can imagine you get hit the front, you hit the back. And the last common part that's affected is the bottom part, right? Because it's round. And the brain, the spinal cord is an extension of the brain, right? Which comes downward. So when you hit the skull in the front, you hit the skull in the back, and then you shear to the bottom of the brain, right? That bottom of the brain, you have the pituitary stalk, right? The pituitary stalk is what creates all the hormones of your body, right?
Growth.
All of it. Growth hormone, testosterone, cortisol, your thyroid function. And now you damage that, you shear through it. Now you have hormonal issues, right? So when we talk about guys starting to test positive for performance enhancing drugs in the UFC, it makes me wonder, maybe they're on this stuff because it's making them feel better. They've taken too many headshots. And I listened to a Joe Rogan podcast, a medical doctor who was treating traumatic brain injuries in guys, and all he was doing was the hormonal part, supplementing with growth hormone, testosterone in guys, in men, and he was having pretty good effects. They were improving, and that's the mechanism he was changing.
So my concern with that, and I agree, usually when you're talking about people that need testosterone replacement therapy, because we used to have exemptions in the UFC for that, right? Mm-hmm. So here are the cases where if you have this hypergonadism or whatever, if you do require testosterone replacement therapy, or under around 30, and you're still fighting, like the general causes are one, you abused it early on, and now you need it. Otherwise, like you can't create it. That's one. Mm-hmm. Should you be granted that on a basis of you were irresponsibly younger? So maybe too naturally you just don't have it. Should you be granted it just to get a natural level of it? Well, is there a reason you don't have it? And let's talk about what you just brought up in terms of traumatic brain injuries. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in the case of traumatic brain injuries, if you've had a traumatic brain injury to the extent that is it affecting your hormone levels to this detrimental degree that you're not producing IGF, you're not producing HGH, you're not producing any testosterone, you've got depression based on this, that you've had this severity of brain injury that you're no longer producing these chemicals. What is the risk now that you've had such a bad injury? Should you fight at all? My answer is no. I don't think you should. Mm-hmm. And I also don't think you should be supplemented for previous behavior being what it was. If you're irresponsible when you're young.
Yeah, for sure.
Because, okay, let's break it down. Like, life's not fair. There's going to be John Joneses in life.
My dad taught me that lesson when I was young.
There's going to be John Joneses. There's going to be just motherfuckers that are just physically your superior.
Yeah.
And then there's going to be the, whatever. And people talk about an even playing field. When did we ever have a fucking even playing field?
Yeah.
So again, when you talk about traumatic brain injury and having to supplement this stuff, it's like, yeah, that's one reason they used to approve it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's bullshit. And I'm actually kind of glad they don't do it anymore because, I mean, like you were saying before, like these can be compounded, right?
Yeah.
And if you've had a concussion that bad in the past, like that it sheared your spinal cord.
Yeah, pituitary gland,
like what's the next step if you have one more?
Yeah.
Like death, like the spinal cord's pretty fucking sensitive, right?
Yeah. It is.
Right. So, I mean, that's kind of, I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely an ethical issue for sure. Yeah. So going back to this, so that's what happens. So you have all these compounding symptoms and issues that happen. And there's no one drug or even multiple drugs that can address each one of the, you can imagine you can have a bag full of a 1 gallon bag full of pharmaceutical drugs to try to treat the depression, the anxiety, the tremor, the testosterone issue, your everything, your double vision, your headaches, your migraines.
Yeah, you'd be like 25 years old with this pill thing. You know,
Yeah.
the Monday through the Monday through Sunday, the grandma thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'll go a little more in depth because this gets really interesting. So after you experience a concussion or even just a mild traumatic brain injury where you don't lose consciousness, but side note, the second most common cause of a traumatic brain injury is actually a car accident, whiplash in a car accident. So this stuff isn't just specific to athletes. Everyone who gets in a car accident, not everyone, but people who get in a pretty severe car accident, the whiplash, brain hits front, brain hits in the back, shear through the pituitary stalk, and you can have the same exact presentation.
And can you clarify this? So I know a lot of people that they'll take a hard enough impact to their, not even to the head, but even right to the chest. Like you can get tackled. You don't even have to hit your head, but you can have enough impact to the just your solar plexus to your midsection to where it'll cause your brain to still move. Like it'll be enough to where your brain moves around. Like you'll have guys getting tackled, or you can have impact that doesn't have to be direct to your head, and you don't have to hit your head to get a concussion.
Exactly.
And I don't know how many people went out and saw the Will Smith movie. I don't know if they covered that, but I think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's huge. If you imagine your head's just kind of flopping around, so you take a hit to the torso. And football players, they get hit into the torso, and what happens? Your head flies backwards, and then the head flies forward, and like I said, the brain's just suspended there in fluid inside the skull. So it bounces around, moves around. It can even rotate a little bit on its axis and cause more severe problems.
Man.
So what happens after that is the concussion inflammatory cascade. This is where it gets really complicated. So immediately after a traumatic brain injury or a concussion, you get massive constriction of blood vessels in the brain. Okay. So you could lose up to 30% of blood flow to the brain. All right? That happens right away. All right? Then you get immediate destruction of what's called the blood-brain barrier, right? Which is basically a specialized cells that separate out the blood in your system, in your body, from the rest of the fluid surrounding the brain and the spinal cord. All right. So that breaks down. So now things, when we talk about drugs, medications that don't cross the blood-brain barrier or that do, specific ones, now that destroys it. And now things are crossing over back and forth, which can complicate things even worse. All right. Now, after that, what you get is called microglial activation. Microglial cells are basically just immune cells in the brain, right? They scavenge and destroy damaged neurons. They clear out debris. If you got plaques, if you got bacteria, viruses causing havoc in the brain, they try to clear out. They clean it up and get it out. All right. So these guys fire up to try to clean up the mess from the concussion. All right. However, what happens when these guys fire up, these guys are active for about 14 to 28 days after the initial injury. All right. So, they're active. They're doing their job for up to a month. And if you sustain another head injury or concussion in that time, your healing time increases exponentially. All right. Because then they fire up even more. Right. After that, what you get is, because I know you like your Coke Zero and your no sugar soft drinks, you get massive release of glutamate and aspartate from neurons in the brain. All right. And the reason that's such a big deal is because glutamate, MSG, artificial sweeteners like aspartate, they're actually excitatory amino acids in the brain. Okay. So they fire up neurons, which is good when you need it, But if you're consuming it and it's contributing to the amount of what you have already in the brain, you get what's called excitotoxicity. And there's a neurosurgeon who wrote a really good book on this called Excitotoxicity, the Taste That Kills. And all he does is research now, but this artificial sweeteners basically excite neurons to the point where they just explode and die.
Oh, awesome.
Right? So you don't get the glucose and insulin surge, which is good.
But you kill brain cells.
Exactly.
So if you get a concussion, cut the Diet Coke.
Exactly.
Okay.
Diet Coke, artificial sweeteners, Chinese buffets, because they like the MSG stuff. But you know what? The stuff is so hidden now. They've changed the name of it so many times so that people can't even recognize it anymore. It's insane.
So you're not just going to be able to see aspartame in the product
or MSG.
They're just going to call it something else.
They're going to call it. Commonly, it's called all natural flavoring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I had a friend actually who's allergic to MSG. She bought some beef jerky from Costco.
Okay.
And she checked the ingredients. It said all natural flavoring and beef. And she broke out in hives. Like, I don't know what happened. I checked the ingredients. There's no MSG in it. But it said asterisk, all natural flavoring.
Proprietary blend.
Yeah, exactly. The proprietary blend.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, it's well hidden in foods. It's hard to... But anyways, you get this massive release of this stuff. Glutamate and aspartate. Which causes excitotoxicity, pushes neuron death. Basically, they excite to the point of death.
You know how many people will say, "I told you so" if I die because of a fucking Coke Zero? You know how many of you guys are going to say that? Right. Each and everybody, all of them, except for the 3 people I know that actually drink this crap.
Right.
What it was, I grew up in a house with my father was diabetic, so we didn't have regular soda at all. But
yeah.
My dad was a lot older than my mom, so he didn't drink alcohol, but we always had fucking Diet Coke in the house, so I got used to it.
Yeah.
And that's not addictive or anything. Is it a kid drinking Diet Coke?
You know what's funny is that, or not, maybe not funny, but interesting. I just read a research study saying that drinking diet drinks actually doubles your risk for diabetes.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And the mechanism is basically it destroys your natural intestinal bacteria.
Oh.
Which furthers the inflammatory cascade and increases your risk for diabetes.
Yeah, I'm surprised I don't have it already. Genetically, I'm surprised I haven't got it already. And then knowing that, but I have all this information. I'm aware, and I just do it anyway. It's like It's like that Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas movie with Hunter S. Thompson or whatever. He's like, yeah, I knew it was wrong. I did it anyway.
Right?
It's like that. It's like that. I'm an asshole about some things, but most things I stay pretty healthy. I think I eat better than 99-ish% of the world's population.
Oh, for sure.
But then that.
For sure. Hey, I have my vices too,
I really don't drink much. I really these have been sitting here quite a while, and but it's when in Sunnyvale, right?
Right.
So this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing.
There you go. All right. So what happens next? The next step of that is within 6 to 12 hours of the concussion or traumatic brain injury, you get what's called a leaky gut. Have you heard this leaky gut?
It doesn't sound pleasant.
Does not sound pleasant. Or these, I guess the more scientific word would be increased intestinal permeability.
We had Sonic the other day, and afterwards I had what could be described as a leaky gut, or somewhere in that southern region related to digestion.
A leaky colon.
Oh yeah, the colon was on fire. There was a movement.
Right?
There was a movement.
Right? That's funny. So this, very similar to the blood-brain barrier, is a barrier that separates basically the stuff in our intestines from our bloodstream, right? Which is very important because if you imagine the easiest way external pathogens, say bacteria or viruses, get into our system is through the foods we eat, the things we put in our mouth. And the intestines are designed to keep that out of our bloodstream. So, and they've shown this in a lot of vets with concussion issues, that you get within 6 to 12 hours, you get basically a leaky gut. So that in itself can increase the amount of inflammation from the intestines that feeds into the brain inflammation, right? When we have a leaky gut, you get proteins in foods leak into the bloodstream, and our body recognizes that as foreign. Okay. And it tries to attack it. The immune system says this doesn't belong in the bloodstream, we're going to attack it. And when we talk about autoimmune diseases, what happens is these proteins oftentimes mimic our own tissue. And it's amazing the amount of people who have autoimmune diseases. It's getting worse and worse. And the immune system recognizes this protein as a foreign. It mimics a tissue, and then it starts to attack not only that foreign antigen or protein that's in our bloodstream, but it attacks whatever tissue mimics it, right? It can be, in the case of rheumatoid arthritis, it can be your joints. In the case of multiple sclerosis, it could be your myelin, the nerves. It could be anything. In the case of thyroid issues, Hashimoto's disease, the immune system attacks the thyroid. So that just fuels then the brain inflammation after that. All right. So then we talked about this already. After that, over time, you get either upregulation or downregulation of hormones. They start to suffer. You get too much of one, too little of another. Cortisol, which is commonly known as the stress hormone, usually becomes too high. It affects our sleep. We can't sleep anymore. Leads to depression, lots of different things. All right. And then from that, what happens, that whole inflammatory cascade, if that's allowed to continue, you can actually reconcuss, have another concussion absent of an actual trauma. You can reconcuss chemically, they call it. So if you already have this inflammatory cascade happening, and it's so bad and nothing's done to intervene and stop the cycle, it keeps happening and it keeps getting worse and worse. So you actually reconcuss absent of trauma. And that's when you get into the severe cases of these football players killing their families or committing suicide. I remember when Junior Seau was found dead, he had shot himself. Nobody could believe it. And, they found he had a pretty messed up brain too from all the head traumas. And that's where you get the CT or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is what they're calling it in the football players.
So in terms of preventive care, preventive measures, are there any early warning things? Are there any markers? What can people do to sort of to preempt this sort of thing? Is this treatment? You mentioned that it happens chemically. If it's treated, if you catch it early enough, what's the difference in terms of severity?
Yeah. So huge difference. If you're proactive right off the bat, you can make a big difference for sure. So days 0 to 14 are the most critical, right? You want to minimize any kind of sensory stimulus. You mentioned earlier that you have sensitivity to light. You can have sensitivity to sound, sensitivity to quick movement. Initially, first couple of days, you want to minimize all that. Focus on resting, on sleeping. You also want to actually minimize cell phone use and laptop computer use.
Is this the color? Is it the?
It has to, partly with the color, the blue light. Okay. Which the blue light's actually been shown to mess with your circadian rhythms, your sleep cycles. which I just heard the new Apple operating systems actually installed some kind of app that limits the amount of blue light you're exposed to.
So I heard, you know, Dr. Rhonda Patrick?
Yes, I love listening to her talks.
So one of the things she actually said to do was to go to accessibility settings on your iPhone. I don't know the Android version of this, but in the iPhone, there's accessibility settings, and then you can put it on grayscale.
Yeah.
And this actually, with people that have sleep disorders that are like very prone to using the phone like all the time.
Yeah.
First of all, this will take down it'll make it less desirable chemically for your brain.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not going to be like quite as much serotonin released because of the color, the stimulus, the blue light, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
And then also because of this, people that have, you know, problems sleeping, that use the phone very close to bed, like obviously like it's better if you do have sleep issues to cut off electronic use altogether, like at least 1 hour before bedtime.
100%.
And if you're drinking things with a lot of caffeine, any sort of alkaloid that has like stimulus, like a effect, like, you know, chocolate, whatever.
Yeah.
You'll cut this off a long time before bed because it's going to have a, you know, residual effect it's going to keep you up.
Mm-hmm.
But again, yeah, by switching to grayscale instead of color, it's supposed to kind of help you and make it less desirable to use the phone constantly, to cut down the addictive,
properties of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I hadn't heard that talk. I'm a big fan of hers. I like listening to her talks.
This is one of her 100 Joe Rogan appearances.
Right?
Like, and yeah, if you do have, I mean, I'm very anti-Ambien. I'm very anti, you know, sleep medication.
Oh man, that stuff's terrible. That stuff messes with your brain chemistry so bad. It's crazy.
I've heard it's not actually really sleep when you're sleeping. Like you're not getting the same effect of like sleep if you're in like this Ambien coma.
Yeah,
you wake
people
up,
get addicted to that and messed up for a long time.
And the reason for addiction to that is obvious. Like sleep is tremendous.
Yeah,
you need it.
Yeah,
your body breaks down. You won't heal from these concussions. I know from personal experience, the worst concussion I ever had on the mat, I caught a knee to the temple, really good, and I mean it dropped me. I don't think I was out, but I was definitely, you know, I was as close to it as possible, right?
Yeah.
The next few days, I was very photosensitive, as you mentioned, but every time I would take like a significant step where it would like kind of jar your body, like jump, there'd be a flash. And I tried to go back to jiu-jitsu early, and we were doing the hip escape drill, and I was okay with that. But then we would do forward roll, and every time I would do it, I would pop up to my feet, or the backward roll, I'd pop up to my feet, and it would just be a flash, and just I felt like I wanted to throw up, and I'm like, nope, I can't do it. I came back too soon.
Yeah.
So I had to take a few more days off, and it was a good I want to say a week to 10 days of I just couldn't do anything. And this is years and years ago, but I've had a few smaller ones since. Nothing ever that severe.
Yeah.
But, it was very scary.
It is scary, and those symptoms were pretty minimal. But when you get into the other dizziness, vertigo, a tremor, even it's scary.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had that. I was just definitely very photosensitive. And I caught a knee to the head, as I mentioned, kind of before we turned the mics on. Just somebody sort of like, you know, you kind of you know, just a scream of your leg, or you kind of like I don't even know how you want to describe it, but you windmill your leg.
Yeah.
I caught the side of somebody's knee, like the ACL side of it, you know, where like it attaches to the thigh or whatever. I caught one of those on the side of the head, and there was a bright flash. I'm like, oh man, what's this gonna be? But there were no associated symptoms that came along with it. So I feel like I lucked out.
Yeah.
But just having that flash, like that sort of bright flash, I'm like, crap, that was a concussion.
Yeah.
Even though most people would probably not associate just a minor head trauma with you know, you don't have to be knocked unconscious to be concussed.
Oh no, not at all.
It doesn't have to be a very big impact. I don't think people realize that either.
No, not at all. You can have a 5 mile per hour car collision and have a slight concussion or a mild traumatic brain injury and experience all that stuff. 100%.
Yeah, and it's going to be compounded because if you had a bad one previously, then even a smaller one, and now that smaller one's a medium one.
Yeah, 100%. And the other issue with cell phones is actually the radiation, the that comes in every time you receive a call, receive a text message, you receive an email. It's actually been shown in studies that radiation causes brain tumors.
Is that real?
That's real. That's real. And I've seen the science behind it. And what happens is it changes the permeability of cell membranes, and you get massive calcium influx into cells, and then they just eventually explode and die.
So in any given place, right, there's going to be Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
And they use all kinds of different radio spectrum. Like they use all different kinds of frequencies. They frequency hop all the time.
Yeah.
To find the most open airwaves in order to have the most efficient signal. And so they're frequency hopping. You have Wi-Fi. We have Bluetooth. You have obviously the cell phone, the cellular stuff.
Yeah.
The satellite, if you have satellite, which is going to be lower, obviously. But so of all of those, is the cell phone the worst? I mean, is Wi-Fi?
I would say the cell phone's the worst, merely because the proximity to your head or to your body. If you imagine answering a call, carrying the phone in your pocket, and you get either a text, an email, or it's scanning for a Wi-Fi signal, because it's virtually touching your body, is bad. Holding it to your head is worse.
Because at any given time, your phone is trying to scan for Wi-Fi, because it's always probing unless you disable it.
Right.
Bluetooth, unless you disable it.
Mm-hmm.
The NFC, so the Apple Pay thing, right? Google Pay, like that's another sort of protocol. This is sort of like low energy Bluetooth, but similar sort of band. Then there's GPS, so that thing is also scanning as well. Yeah. And then the Wi-Fi, even if you're not actively on a network, if your Wi-Fi radio is enabled, there's something called WPS or whatever. Like there's a Wi-Fi positional system, which basically Google wardrobe the entire world. Yeah. All the Google Map stuff. Like they also mapped every Wi-Fi access point. Yeah. So you're able to, that's why they say like your signal, your location accuracy will improve if you enable Wi-Fi. The reason being is that they can do triangulation based on the Wi-Fi access points of known. So they know that I have an access point, my neighbor has one, the other neighbor and the other neighbor. And if you're in the middle of all of those, they can measure signal strength between those Wi-Fi access points and determine your exact location with more accuracy than GPS, because satellites are way up there. The Wi-Fi access points are right here, 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 and here, and there's more of them.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's the same way that they do with cell phone towers. So like it used to be called AGPS. It's assisted GPS. So if there's 3 cell phone towers in like the direct vicinity, and you're at this relative location right here. So what the phone will do is it'll measure your relative location, like your signal strength between the 3 towers, and be able to determine your relative location down to about a few yards. Yeah. But there's more Wi-Fi access points than these cell towers. So they can triangulate very accurately, and then they take the data from both of them. They can say like, you're on the couch right here. Yeah. Which is how
crazy accurate.
Yeah. And then you take the user contributed data from games like Ingress and Pokemon Go, because people are now cameraing the inside of every house everywhere in the world. Yeah. So now they have maps, external and internal, with photo, accuracy of the entire world. Yeah. Because it's a craze, got to catch them all. But what you're doing is you're providing map data to Google. Now they know where everything is, external and internal. And if they weren't marketing to you enough, now they can. Damn, he's got a Samsung TV.
Right, they know everything in your house.
Man, let's get him an LG, because he's got this one right here. Yeah, well, you don't think they use that? Of course they do. Why do you think they provide that fucking game for free? Right. It's map data. But anyway, like all of the protocols behind that, there's got to be radiation too, right? So it's just the phone call. Like, who the fuck talks on the phone anymore? Yeah, I haven't talked to half of my friends on the phone ever.
I hate talking on the phone.
It's a whole thing. It's like, I got to do the thing as social. Why? Right. But again, if you're saying radiation comes from that, it's like that other stuff has got to be pretty,
Yeah. I mean, I've read a lot of things on that. I think the cell phone is the biggest issue because you hold it to your head, hold it to your ear. There's a PhD researcher who wrote a book on it. I can't remember her name, but presented the research, and it was insane. The correlation between brain tumors and cell phone use. And I said, man, scary stuff. That's why I hate talking on the phone. I never like talking on the phone, though. My girlfriend gets mad at me all the time.
Oh, she likes talking on the phone?
She likes to have conversations on the phone. I hate talking on the phone.
It's
keep it 30 seconds or less.
I like to talk in person.
Yeah, that's better.
We've had a couple people that want to do this over Skype, and we have the hardware for it now. We can do a full Skype thing. I can have them up on the screen. We got all these cameras going. We could do a full HD audio video Skype podcast. But I like to meet the person, go train with them, get a meal, and fucking talk in person because it's that human experience, and it's nowhere anymore. There's no community in the world anymore. So I like to meet people, and the phone's all right. I mean, obviously we're lazy. We're fucking busy. We have the text is easier, but I'd prefer in person. But man, I get why people like to talk on the phone because it's more personal than text. Yeah. I just don't want to hold this stupid thing next to it's this weird glass metal rectangle. It's not a phone anymore.
Right.
So
it gets in the way.
I don't have the phone muscle. I don't have that.
I don't have the patience to be standing there with the phone to my head.
I'm like, I'm not as like I get it. Like I've been called an asshole enough times to probably gather that I have some level of asshole in me, but I'm not a big enough asshole to walk around with a Bluetooth in my fucking ear.
Right.
Like I don't have that level of dick in me.
For reals.
I can't do it.
For reals. Oh man. Anyways, going back to where we were at. So the cell phone use is another one. That's a big one. And then what you want to do in those first few days is actually restrict all carbohydrate intake.
Inflammation.
Exactly.
Yep.
Inflammation, not just inflammation, but the brain, when in its sensitive state, can't utilize glucose as an energy, right? For a long time in the science community, it was believed glucose was the sole source of energy for the brain. Now,
it's fat, isn't it?
Fat, ketone bodies.
Yep.
Absolutely. Ketosis.
These ketogenic guys are actually doing really well.
Yes. And all the research is supporting it right now. Even when we covered neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, you want to get people in a mild state of ketosis because the brain thrives on ketone bodies as energy over glucose. Yep. And
well, the brain's what, like 90% fat or 80% fat or something? So
like 60-70% fat.
So by using an energy derived from fat, it's I'm imagining your brain's going to operate much more efficiently. I've heard that the cognitive response, that it's much more optimized using like a fat-based ketone diet as opposed to like burning carbohydrates.
Exactly.
So it's
you know what's up.
It's real. I read.
It's crazy because then you get into the whole debate about cholesterol and heart disease, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. But the latest research, I mean, just this year, they announced the governing body that sets the standards for what they're called dietary guidelines.
Okay.
Advisory committee just this year, 2016, announced cholesterol or foods high in cholesterol do not promote heart disease.
So what I've heard different things, and I haven't got the full explanation. I've heard like free radicals that contributes. I've heard like different types of fat. but like the saturated fats, like that contributes, but not necessarily. There's like good type of fats, like your what is it, medium chain triglyceride, your MCT.
Right. So, MCTs you find most abundant in coconut oil.
Yep.
Coconut oil is a saturated fat.
Okay.
And so that's a big misconception also, saturated fats. And this is, I won't probably get a lot of shit for this, but I stay on top of the research as much as I can and read a lot. And I have this argument with my girlfriend's sister a lot because she's a wellness advisor for Stanford.
Okay.
And so they train her on teaching their patients wellness and healthy eating. And yeah, low saturated fats, high carbohydrates, vegetables, and minimal meat as possible.
What is this for?
That's the general guidelines.
Oh.
General USDA guidelines.
Yeah, but that's basically the research that the Gatorade guys have been pushing for years, and like they sell a drink with carbohydrates, and like they're the ones funding this research.
Yeah. For
years.
Yeah, and so, there's a lot of massive confusion, heated debate about it, and there's a doctor. His name is Dr. Mark Hyman. He's a medical doctor, and he just wrote a book called "Eat Fat and Get Thin." Yep. And he's done these clinical trials on patients where he has them eat a high fat diet, moderate amount of protein, high amount of vegetables,
and then low to no carb, right?
Exactly. And he records their blood pressure, their cholesterol levels, and everything, and he sees everything improve. And what you're doing is you're switching the body's energy source from glucose, carbohydrates to fat, ketone bodies. And it's just for the brain. If it's so efficient for the brain, why not for the body?
A lot of guys are doing it now. A lot of the athletes, a lot of the triathletes, a lot of the fighters are doing it.
Yeah.
My buddy Kyle Kingsbury just went and did. He went to Zion and did an ultra marathon. He was in ketosis. He was fat. He was already fasting for that last day.
Yeah.
He ran the damn thing. Went home. He was rolling the next day.
Man,
he was fine.
Yeah, right?
Absolutely fine. And he's been in ketosis. He's been doing the sort of the ketogenic diet for quite a while. He went on Joe Rogan recently and talked about it. He actually got Joe Rogan on it.
No way.
Yeah, Kyle he was on there with the glucose strips, or no, it's like glucose strips.
To
measure your ketones.
Yeah, the P strips.
Well, it's you prick your finger, then you measure your blood ketones.
Okay, that's the other one.
If you track Joe Rogan's sort of ketogenic thing and like Fighter and the Kid back, it was when Kyle Kingsbury was on there, and so
interesting.
So I get an ear beating about it every time I see him, and I just saw Kyle like 2 nights ago, and he's still he's going on. He's a big proponent of ketogenic diet. And he's all over it, but you see the guy, he's like 6'2", 6'3", 230 or something, and shredded, but he's a ketogenic guy. So it breaks down the stereotype of like what people like. Okay, fat this, you need tons of protein to maintain muscle or to grow muscle. It's like we thought that was true, but it doesn't translate 1-to-1. Like you take a bunch of protein, and it's not just going to stack on top of your biceps and make new protein. It's like energy's energy,
right?
And it's being able to sustain and handle the workload. I mean, like obviously if you're doing a marathon, there's going to be more carbs than if a guy's just sort of doing just some average level output in terms of exercise and what they do in a day. But yeah, a lot of they do fasting for a number of days. This is normal for this, and they feel fine. They're not dying.
Yeah.
But also the guys that are into this ketogenic diet, like they're not addicted to sugar the way the way that the guys that are carb dependent are.
Or carb loading, that's huge. Even when I ran cross country in high school, our coach would tell us, make sure you carb load the night before. Massive plate of pasta, massive amount of rice, carb load before a big race, so you have all the glucose stores. And that's changing.
So every time that I've ever done that for anything athletic, the next day I felt bloated, I felt stuffed, I felt slow, and I felt like shit.
Yeah.
Like anytime I have just carbs in general, the next day or the previous meal before I go train the next morning, I feel terrible.
You might have a gluten sensitivity.
I don't know that I have a gluten sensitivity. I just I don't consume a lot of bread. I don't consume a lot of carbs, and I try to avoid sugar. I like sweet stuff, but you know, the majority of my meals, like I don't eat a lot of rice. I don't eat a lot of that sort of thing.
Me neither.
It's mostly I'm good with fats. Protein's great, but then I'm not fully ketogenic, and I'm not going to claim to be, but then again, I try to limit my carb intake to my perceived output that day. Like, what do I plan to do? Like, what is my objective that day? Like, am I going to do a double day? Am I going to do powerlifting that day? Am I going to do jiu-jitsu? Like, what kind of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, for sure.
Am I working, a particular thing, or are we going to go like full on, like it's going to be a marathon roll? So I try to really tailor my dietary requirement based on my level of output for that day. Yeah, especially in terms of carbs, and then I keep fat pretty standard. I like to keep my fat levels high. Yeah, and then protein. I get what I can. Sure. Because I eat meat. I'm not mad at vegans or vegetarians, but steak's delicious. I'm not mad at it.
Right.
I'm not a vegetarian. It's fine. Meat's cool. I think factory farming sucks, but like cities exist. So until we figure out a better way of doing it, like it would be great if I could just go hunting and get a big freezer outside, and that would be tremendous.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
But I live in the suburbs, and cities exist, and I try to, get organic, fresh food, just free range when I can. But, I try to eat as healthy as possible. But yeah, the keto thing is, it's more and more popular. It's really funny. There's a really good podcast called Livin' La Vida Low Carb.
Okay.
Have you heard this?
I have not.
So like, you could tell it's the beginning of a movement because they're still using puns.
Okay, yeah.
Like anytime a business name has a pun involved, the industry is very new.
Yeah.
Like they'll have like four letter acronyms, and like, you know what I mean? Like it'll be like a more concise branding once it's more established. But like now, like keto's still pretty new to the masses. Right. So you'll still have shows called Livin' La Vida Low Carb.
That's funny.
But it's pretty good. It's very it's informative. They go over a lot of the stuff you're talking about. So.
Yeah, and it's not just for weight loss or for health. I mean, we're talking about concussions,
cognitive function,
function. Yeah, 100% cognitive function. Alzheimer's, dementia, all these things. Alzheimer's is a passion I've gotten into in the last few months, and they say in there, ketosis, get a mild state of ketosis as much as you can. They call Alzheimer's disease a type 3 diabetes.
Really?
Yeah, because the brain sometimes loses its ability to absorb glucose and use it as energy, because it's become so desensitized from too much insulin surges that it can no longer utilize it as an energy source.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's just one cause of Alzheimer's disease. But type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's.
That's crazy. I never would have put the three together, the two together rather. Yeah. Man. Are any of these reversible?
Which ones?
Alzheimer's, that would be induced by the glucose your regulation bit.
Absolutely.
So this is reversible.
Absolutely. So there's a see, I want to be careful with what I say here. So just barely this year, actually, I want to say June of this year, the first ever research article was published showing reversal of cognitive decline in Alzheimer's patients. And this guy, he's actually in Novato. I can't remember what university he's doing it out of.
Great town.
Yeah. PhD researcher, published in, I don't know if it was an Alzheimer's journal or a neurology journal. He did it in 9 out of 10 people, reversed cognitive decline. And he's publishing a follow-up soon where he did it in 100 people. All right. And I sat down, I read through his entire paper, and it's amazing what he did. And it was all done through diet, lifestyle changes, exercise, supplementation.
Okay.
All right. And he says in there, I say the drugs, the medications, they have a place, but that's one out of the four, right?
Would you say the medications are more symptomatic versus the changes you mentioned in terms of dietary?
Medications are always symptomatic.
So these are more like homeopathic, sort of trying to address the root cause rather than actually treating the symptom.
Finding the root cause. And like I said, if the type 3 diabetes mechanism, the insulin resistance mechanism for the brain is the primary cause of it, of the dementia, you have to address that. But there's various causes. I mean, there can be a bacterial infection, a viral infection in the brain that triggers the whole cascade of the cognitive decline. He has a couple different mechanisms. Heavy metal toxicity was a big one. So many different causes. So he had many different therapies for those patients. And that's why he didn't get much, I guess, he didn't get much exposure. He even, I listened to a lecture where he presented his research, and he said he had problems getting funding. He had problems getting support for his study because he had 36 different variables that he observed, he changed, he treated, because each case is different. It's a very complex disease, and each person had a unique treatment plan that was totally different. And that's not how clinical trials work, right? You have one variable, you have one treatment, you observe that treatment to that one variable, and ideally you get rich off some drug that fixes that. And that's not what he was about.
Well, there's all the money's in treatments. There's no money in cures because you don't have your repeat business. You don't have your repeat customers.
You don't have repeat customers.
So the guys, that are, from the MAPS Institute, they're researching psychedelics and actually, restoring brain function and cognitive function. Those guys are being blocked from their research as well, because obviously it's all, drugs are bad. Yeah. Clearly drugs are bad unless they're in a white bottle with a little label on it from Walgreens. Yep. Funniest thing, man, I've said this a couple times before. So we've got the FDA. Mm-hmm. And this is a slippery slope, because the minute you mention FDA, it's like, oh, well, the government knows what's good for me, because we decided that the government's our parents instead of like it being there to serve us. Yeah. Because we're America. Like, the government's not America. There's something that's there to serve us because we're paying them. It's not vice versa. We pay them. So if you go to CVS or Walgreens or any of these pharmacies, I've said this 100 times, so I'll try to abbreviate or abridge it rather. Mm-hmm. You go down every single aisle. Like, what do you think the largest aisle is at a CVS or a Walgreens?
The drugs.
Liquor. Followed by processed foods.
Oh, yeah. Even the grocery store is all processed foods.
It's all processed foods. It's all sugar-based stuff. It's all carb-based stuff. It's a high fructose corn syrup is like the most widely used ingredient in all of these drugstores. The next biggest thing is like candy and cookies and crackers and pasta and just the bullshit. And then you look at medicines, and even in the children's medicine, you're looking at like high fructose corn syrup being like one of the more prevalent ingredients, right? Yeah. But we decided that these places know what's best for us, and we've given this role to the FDA, saying like, okay, these guys have got it all figured out, and the stuff that's legal versus illegal is it's kind of absurd. And then just before, let's say the medicine is the medicine, and we're not going to critique how they approve and don't approve various medications to treat various symptoms, because they treat symptoms, they don't cure a fucking thing. There's no cure for the common cold. We've already decided that, right? Who was it? Not Zycam, but the other thing, they got sued for like billions over that. Remember the Airborne?
Oh,
They claim to be able to cure the cold
Yeah.
with giving you zinc and vitamin C, which we've already figured out was bullshit. But you go to the front counter, you're going to check out, you're going to buy your stuff, you're going to buy your high fructose corn syrup, you're going to buy your bottle of tequila, you're going to buy your fucking Tylenol and whatever else, you just some tampons, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I forgot something. What's right at the counter? What did I forget? Fuck, I better get a Twix bar and a lighter.
Yeah. Yep.
That's before you leave. And you're like, okay, these guys have definitely got my best interest at heart. No, they fucking don't. It's a business.
No, not at all.
It's a business. It's a business. And we've like given them this role of being America's parent.
Yeah.
Like they know what's best. And if you second guess them, that you're somehow you're un-American. And we've given this role to the government. We've given it to the FDA. And we forgot that we're America.
Yeah.
We forgot that they're there to serve us, and we watch these cartoon elections on TV, and you're not supposed to say it. It's a fucking cartoon.
It's a joke, man.
It's a complete joke.
Scary.
And one of those two people is going to be the one representing us to the free world moving forward for the next 4 years.
Yeah.
It's really scary. So I didn't mean to jump off on a tangent there, but I think more people kind of need to wake up and look around and see what's actually going on.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It is scary. And me being in healthcare, you mentioned you're being un-American. When you work in healthcare, you're a quack, or you're going against mainstream medicine. You're crazy. You're a quack. That's what they call us a lot.
Oh yeah, if you go to a standard, the family practitioner or your primary care physician, which is a thing, which is just there to make sure that you pay an extra stop before you go to the doctor that actually fixes your problem. So the way that like an HMO works, you need one, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the Kaiser model, right?
Yeah.
It's like one-stop shop for everything.
Don't get me started on Kaiser, man.
I get PPO insurance. I pay extra just because I want to go to
the freedom.
I have my doctor.
Yep.
I have my same doctor. He does house calls. It's not weird red tape. He speaks English to me.
Yeah.
He'll break it down. He'll be honest with me.
So much red tape in those big.
It's conglomerates.
Yeah.
It's just it's the Mick doctors. It's the Mick hospitals.
Yeah. I had a patient who was she was a wellness advisor at Kaiser.
Okay.
So she basically taught patients proper diet, eating, healthy habits, and she was overweight. She was extremely diabetic, and she was coming to see me because she was in chronic pain. And she was teaching the patients of Kaiser, wellness and healthy eating habits.
So they read this from a book.
Oh, I think they train them. They train them to basically regurgitate the standard. Like I said, the standard is 50 to 60% carbs in your diet, very little meat, no fat or minimal fat, and eat a lot of veggies.
So it sounds a lot like I've gotten like my CPR certification like 6 times over the last like 20 years, man, whatever the fuck it is. And every time I've taken the course, because you have to update it all the time, basically.
Yeah.
It's just new ways for them not to get sued.
Yeah.
They don't really change the material very much. It's just new ways for the Red Cross not to get sued for somebody applying these procedures in the wrong way.
Yeah.
So they like overly politically correctize like all of it.
Yeah.
I have to take it again because it turns out like I got my black belt, but to get the actual certificate from IBJJF, it's $400.
What?
Just to get the paper. Yup.
Oh, what a rip.
But I have to renew it every so often. I don't know. The renewals are $150. Like, so, like first degree, second degree, all that shit.
Yeah.
I think you have to renew it more than that. Because like every 3 or something years you have to do that. But I also have to get a CPR certification to get my fucking black belt certification. But I have it, but I've had it like fucking 100 times.
Yeah.
I used to be a lifeguard, then I did it again, I did it again and again, whatever. So I have to take it. I have to take the new version of CPR training.
Yeah.
Just to take it, and
what a rip.
I got to spend all day giving the Heimlich and fucking.
chest
compression, clearing the airway, and like learning how to do it on a baby versus how to do it on an adult, and the whole deal. And but every version of that course that I've taken, and I've taken it a bunch of times, is just like how politically correct and how do we avoid the Red Cross getting sued for what the material. Like they just change little tiny details.
For reals.
I kept the materials year to year once, and I was like, oh, they just don't want to get sued. That's all.
Yeah.
They don't change it drastically.
And make a little money off it.
Oh, just a little. Just sort of like the $400 to get a certificate.
Crazy.
Yeah, well, up to brown belt, you just pay like $60. You get the card. I got my purple belt card.
Yeah.
I was like, I should get this. I got my purple belt. I was like, I should get the card. So like if anyone, like if I ever like, open gyms like down the road, be like, oh, is he a legit black belt? Be like, no, fuck you. Because I got the card.
That's right.
But then I go to get the black belt card. Yeah, exactly. I go to get the card and it's like, it's $400. I print out the forms. I'm like, oh.
Specific to black belt.
Just the black belt. It's $400. And then the additional ones are $150. I think it might be annually afterwards.
What?
Yeah. And you can't compete without it.
I wonder how they worked that deal out. Somebody shook hands with somebody and said
it's a private organization. IBJJF isn't like an actual like nonprofit. It's Carlos Gracie Jr., man. That's that guy. Jeez. Yeah, they're like all of the IBJJF tournaments, all of like the that whole thing. It's all through Carlos Gracie. So, I gotta. Well, I'm gonna fucking do it. I want the thing.
Right.
Oh yeah, for whatever.
Hang it on the wall.
Fucking I got the Brownlow one right up there over my U.S. Open fucking gold medal thing.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that.
Yeah.
Like 400. I don't give a shit. It was 12 years. I'm getting the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Hang it right over there. Or I'll just like staple $400 to the wall and be like next to the black belt with the picture of me and Mike like black belt.
That's right. You got it.
I'll just staple $400 up there.
There you go. Jeez. Insane.
Man.
All right. Let's recap real quick because talking about the FDA and not having our best interest at hand. No. I really believe education is very important for prevention and people taking control of their own health. Very important. I think they leave it too much into the hands of their healthcare provider and don't ask enough questions or don't educate themselves enough. And
you mean we're responsible for our own well-being?
Right?
Whoa.
Who would have thought?
Fucking mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. It upsets me so much when I get patients who are so uninvolved in their own healthcare. They just want results without doing the work.
There's no magic pill?
Right? That's what that's what the medical community wants you to believe.
There's no money in cures, man. Treatments are fucking repeat business.
Right. And I mean, we could talk about cancer. Cancer is probably another hour session, another day. But so my girlfriend's dad recently died of prostate cancer just this last May.
Jesus.
And that whole 3 years, it was about a 3-year experience. I learned a lot in the difference of standard of hospital care, just the standard of medical care for that was just so different from hospital, and then from hospital to Stanford. So different. And I think that's a topic for another day maybe, but I learned tons watching them go through that.
Man, I had my dad was in and out of hospitals as I was growing up as a kid, and then at 14 when I was 14 he passed away. And just seeing the difference in sort of the treatment he received between when we lived in New Jersey, going to University of Pennsylvania Hospital, Deborah Heart Hospital, and their attention to detail and the education level. Then when I was 14, we moved to West Texas, like I mentioned, and the care he received, it's like, yeah, we had warmer weather and that helped him, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure the hospitals killed him.
Right? Because
it's the education.
The hospice care nearly killed my girlfriend's dad like twice.
It's really crazy, and I'm gonna sound like a hippie, but the chemo stuff, it's torture. Go to projectcbd.org, man. There's cures there. Everybody that looks at like medicinal pot or medicinal cannabis, it's like, oh, you're just excusing recreational use. It's, maybe. And feeling better is okay. Like, I'm not a big pot guy. Like, I don't like the feeling that much. Like, it's fine. People should be able to do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
And whenever we decided that what we put in our body is somehow not our responsibility and should be governed by someone other than ourselves, we fucked up a long time ago.
For sure.
If I decide to get high out of my mind and fucking, that's it. I'm done. I murk out. I'm dead.
Yeah.
That's my fucking problem.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, he's in possession, and get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about? If I want to use X, Y, or Z or eat X, Y, or Z, that's my fucking business. And that we dump it on the government to police. It's like, you're just giving them more money just to give them more money and more power.
Yeah.
What I do with my body is my fucking business. If I'm hurting somebody else, throw me in jail.
Yeah.
But if it's just me, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
But no, Project CBD, there's non-psychoactive component to cannabis, CBD.
Right.
It's shown to kill cancer cells. It's shown to help with depression. It's shown to help with anxiety, with anti-inflammation. People with seizures. Fucking gone.
Yeah.
Gone. They're able to live their lives again. No more fucking seizure state.
Yeah.
But, and it's funny. They haven't been willing to reschedule it, but the government has sort of loosened up in terms of like what they're willing to do with medical side of it, like the actual the clinical studies.
Yeah.
Which is great, but we just like. And I sound like this giant hippie, like I'm like pro-drug. No, the government's pro-drug. This is all natural stuff. This exists in nature. We have receptors for it. We have receptors for THC and CBD in our fucking brain. We have a pineal gland that's a receptor for DMT. Fucking, they're showing that microdosing of psilocybin, of LSD, of MDMA can reverse the symptoms, reverse the actual the state of depression, reverse PTSD. This is real. And the minute we get the government buy-in, because we need our parents' fucking signature to go on the field trip, the minute they go and they're able to do the fully funded studies, you're going to see a whole paradigm shift in terms of the types of research and how it's going to combine with the guys you talked about in Dallas, like what they're doing just with the diet, the homeopathic approach to it. But when you actually take these components that exist in nature and you're able to say, okay, well, maybe CBD helps here because it has natural anti-inflammatory, and here because it takes care of free radicals and kills cancer cells. When you introduce these components and when you bring down this whole fucking Nancy Reagan war on drugs, drugs are bad. Let's dare to keep kids off drugs. What the fuck are you talking about? Dare to parent your kids and dare to fucking monitor what they do and dare to tell kids, like, you're 18 years old, make decisions for yourself. Oh, you're depressed? Is that why you're drinking? Yeah. Or you're depressed? Is that why you're fucking doing drugs?
Yeah.
Well, don't just treat symptoms. Stop with the symptom shit, because it's global. It's across the board. It's everything from dealing with concussion symptoms to the symptoms of, like, why are people, people aren't happy. Yeah. Like, that's why people go to bars and drink, but it's fine. It's fine because there's taxes on it. Right. We got through prohibition on that. People are fine with going to the bar and drinking. Yeah. But then they crash their cars DWI, but what are we talking about? Yeah. People talk about cars and alcohol. Now that's bad. But then you look at cannabis and, like, that's never happened. Right. There's 0 cannabis deaths in history. Yeah. None. Yeah. But it's illegal. It's bad. But why? Yeah. No one's told us.
My opinion of cannabis totally changed going through my girlfriend's dad's cancer. I actually recommended we get him started on some cannabis because I actually had a patient. A patient who was a medical doctor who runs a cannabis clinic in Oakland. And he was telling me about these different cases he was working on, a non-operable brain tumor, some cancer patients, a prostate cancer patient he was working on. And he would actually take the time to educate the people who went in for a card on proper dosages, concentrations, good sources of the cannabis to work with, and how you could decrease the dosage and observe and what kind of changes you wanted to see. And talking to him was very interesting. He educated me a lot on that stuff. And it's funny, he came to me for a golfing lower back injury. But I learned a lot from him. And my girlfriend's dad started on cannabis, and it made a huge difference. That was one of the one treatment that was consistent throughout the 3 years. And it totally changed my perception of it, for sure.
Yeah, because what we kind of grow up with over here is that, you know, it's bad. It's, you know, it's got this thing with it's hippies, it's druggies, it's a gateway drug.
Yeah.
But it has so many positive effects. And yeah, if you're sitting there getting stoned out of your mind and you're sitting there and you just play Xbox and play video games and stuff, it's a recreational thing. Cool. You're feeling bad and you're doing what you can do. You're not hurting anybody. You want to feel better. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they've shown you know, motor skills and things like that, and then it doesn't have the same effect on driving. I'd prefer, if you are that fucked up, probably don't drive a car.
Probably a good idea.
It's probably a good idea. You hear a lot of people, you know, a lot of drunk drivers. You don't hear a lot of high drivers actually killing people.
Right.
I'm not saying.
Remember those old commercials? Hilarious.
Well, remember the dog, like the talking dog, where he's like, I don't recognize you when you smoke weed.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. You're a talking dog, and like that's what you gotta say.
Yeah.
Like, that's the first thing he said to me.
That's gonna change in November. They're gonna vote on it again.
Well, that's for recreational purposes. We've had it for medical, but it's what we need is the federal government to say, like, this is medicine and we're going to study it, and we're going to say, like, okay, this level of CBD does this level of THC does this.
Yeah.
And
there's not enough funding in the research for it. That's what the medical doctor was telling me. Like,
there's money there. It's just the government pulls they're pea shy about it.
Yeah.
They don't, because what happens? You open the floodgates then, and every single thing that was already treating symptoms, all of a sudden, damn, if the shit on projectcbd.org is true and it does kill cancer cells, who are you now fucking?
Yeah.
Who's not getting paid anymore? It might not be Merck, it might not be Pfizer, right?
Yeah.
All these treatments aren't going to be fucking necessary if you have cures.
Yeah. Even some of the research on the ketogenic diet and ketosis is showing, because a big conception of cancer cells is that they really feed on glucose, on sugar. And when you switch the body's fuel source to ketone bodies, the fat, a lot of the preliminary studies are showing that cancer cells will die because they don't have the glucose to feed off of. So that's still pretty early. It'll take a few years to see more definitive stuff on that, but that's really interesting research too.
I'd like to see, 10 years from now, because it's going to take that long to generate a decent sample of people on these, these ketogenic diets, because it's still kind of like a boutique thing.
Yeah.
Because it takes some dedication, it takes some research. You have to really want to get into it. And at the surface, if you just look at it like high fat diet, people are going to look, oh man, that's probably just going to be some fat fuck.
Yeah.
But the people that actually do it lose a ton of weight.
Yeah. You really have to discern between types of fat. That's people hear fat, they associate consuming fat with getting fat, and there's different types of fat. The worst being trans fats, artificial fats, hydrogenated fats.
Okay,
those are the vegetable oils, the highly oxidized, highly chemically altered fats, and very often they get grouped into just the general term saturated fats, and that's not the case. They're very distinct and very different, and the body responds and metabolizes them very differently.
So basically, your MCT oil is good. A bag of chips is probably fucked.
Exactly.
It's not going to be good.
Exactly.
All right. Well, if we've cranked it fucking 2 hours now, man. It's been good.
That's pretty good.
Let's get some plugs in, man. Let's talk about your practice. Where you at, man?
I am in Fremont, California, East Bay, Vitality Health Services.
Got a website, got a thing?
Got a website. Website is vitalityhs.com. That's where you can find me in person. But I just published my own personal website, www.bayareahealthandwellness.com.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and that's where I offer a lot of this stuff, lab testing for different things. Autoimmunity is a big issue that you can be very proactive about. And so I offer a lot of lab testing and information, diet and lifestyle changes to support that. You can actually put autoimmune diseases in remission. People oftentimes don't understand that. The medical community either will pump you full of steroids, and what a lot of people don't understand, after the steroids, they actually put you on chemotherapy drugs to dampen the immune system, to limit the amount of autoimmunity that you do have.
Okay.
Yeah. You didn't know that, did you?
No,
It sounds insane, doesn't it?
so wait. So autoimmune. So we're talking like HIV or
Autoimmune, we're talking about
Like
like
lupus?
multiple sclerosis, lupus,
Okay.
rheumatoid arthritis,
so lupus would be like the hyperactivity of the immunity.
the immune system.
immune system, okay.
Exactly,
Or-
exactly.
okay.
And what the medical community does to try to dampen it is first pump you full of steroids.
Okay.
To bring down inflammation, all right? And that works for a while. When that stops working, they switch to chemotherapy drugs to basically dampen the immune system.
I bet you're feeling great after that shit. So
Yeah,
if that
right.
doesn't kill you,
Right? And it's funny because I had a guy in his 30s come in. He had rheumatoid arthritis. He was on an immune suppressing drug. And I looked it up, and the first side effect listed was cancer. And I told him, have you read this? Did you know this? And at the age of 30, already on the drug, he's going to be on that the rest of his life.
fuck is cancer a side effect of a drug?
Right?
Why is that? What? What the fuck drug is that?
So,
It's a terrible drug.
Right? And I mean,
Is there not a different drug that doesn't have that? That's like the worst side effect. I've heard of rectal bleeding of being a side effect for medicine.
right, or rectal leakage.
I would, I would take both of those over fucking cancer as a side effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's clearly listed. I mean, if you look it up, and it kind of blows your mind when you sit down and analyze these little things.
Like I get it if the waiver from like if you go skydiving, it says like you might die.
Right?
Like that's obvious.
Yeah.
I'm jumping the fuck out of a plane with a bag on my back.
Yeah.
And if that bag don't fucking work, or the strings somehow get stuck, or the guy fucking strapped to you just decides not to pull it, you die.
Right.
That's obvious. You take a pill, and if cancer's a side effect, that pill isn't a pill anymore. It's a fucking time bomb.
Right? Exactly. It's a time bomb. But people don't think about that. They take, my doctor prescribed it to me. My health is in their hands. So I trust them. And that goes back to the whole FDA having our best interests over our own best interests.
Just
right?
wander around a CVS. Just start fucking filming.
Yeah.
Just Snapchat, just aisle by aisle, and decide how much how much they have our interest at heart, man.
Right. It's insane. It's insane. So let me finish up real quick with going back to what people can do, preventative concussion stuff. Right. We talked about limiting carbohydrates, going into mild state of ketosis. We talked about limiting sensory input, getting enough sleep, avoiding the cell phone use because messing with your circadian rhythms, and then the radiation. And then supplement wise, we were talking about supplements earlier. Supplements can be very beneficial if you get a good quality supplement. You want to make sure, check for purity, for concentration in there. So a high dose omega-3 fish oils,
Okay.
highly beneficial, right? And we're talking about sometimes double or triple the concentration of what's recommended on the actual bottle, right?
Oh, wow.
We're talking about 3 to 5 grams. Typically, they list them in milligrams, 500 milligrams, 1,000 milligrams, and you gotta double, triple that sometimes.
You got to be okay with the fish oil burps.
You know what? If you got a good high quality fish oil, you don't get those burps. You don't get the fishy tastes.
I've not found those. I need to reevaluate
man.
where I'm getting my supplements.
Right? Not Costco or not CVS.
No, man.
Right?
I just go. I just buy liquor and whatever fucking processed foods at CVS. Like,
Right.
that's what they specialize
Right.
in.
So there's a lot of supplement companies, for example, that only sell to healthcare providers,
Okay.
and they take the time to train us, and they only sell to us, and we sell to patients, and it's the highest pharmaceutical grade supplements out there. So the omega-3 fish oils, all right, specifically EPA and DHA, both anti-inflammatory, both basically food for the brain, right? We talked about the brain being 60-70% fat. Those EPA and DHA specifically, they're the fats that are compounds for the brain. They feed the brain, and that's what the brain needs in that time of stress, all right? In addition to that, you got high dose antioxidants. We're talking about free radical damage. I didn't mention free radical damage, but that's a huge contributor to neurodegenerative disease. And it's part of that inflammatory cascade in a concussion, free radical damage. When the aspartame and glutamate come out, they trigger massive free radical damage. So you want to load up on antioxidants, all right? The biggest being things like turmeric. Turmeric is a very powerful anti-inflammatory natural in foods. You can get the whole extract. Curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. You can find isolations of that. And again, I don't want to say too much in dosages because it varies from person to person, but you don't want to take the bare minimum that's listed on the bottle. You're taking double and triple sometimes to be a therapeutic dose. And turmeric has tons of research backed on it, on modulating the immune system, on decreasing inflammation, and things like that. All right. You got magnesium. Magnesium, huge for brain. It's a smooth muscle relaxer. So it helps blood flow, helps lower blood pressure, and also helps circulation in the brain. That's a big one because we talked about one of the immediate effects of a concussion is 15 to 30% of decrease in blood flow to the brain.
So I noticed with magnesium as well. If you take melatonin for sleep, a lot of people get like kind of night terrors or really bad dreams. Mm-hmm. Adding magnesium actually takes that away.
Ah,
so it actually, yeah. So I actually took melatonin and it did knock me out, but it would be the worst nightmares I ever had.
Vivid nightmares.
Like night terrors to the point where it was horrible. And you supplement magnesium in along with that, and it alleviates it. You actually get a good night's sleep.
Yeah,
so
magnesium's a very good central nervous system depressant. So it lets you relax, lets you sleep, relaxes smooth muscle, like I said. So you dilate blood vessels, get better circulation. Let's see, vitamin D. Vitamin D is huge for modulating the immune system. It is the number one vitamin deficiency in the United States, vitamin D. All right. And there's a lot of issues and discrepancies when we get into blood labs. More complicated, we test blood for vitamin D levels. A vitamin D level considered normal is above 30. All right. Optimal levels for vitamin D are between 60 and 90. All right. So you get a vitamin D blood test, your doctor tells you, oh, it's 32. You're good. You're normal. And that is not optimal, especially when you're suffering from a traumatic brain injury. And that's information that doesn't get put out there. People aren't educated on that. So you need to optimize vitamin D levels between 60 and 90, not the bare minimum 30. And that's huge. Testosterone too. When you look at blood levels of testosterone, a lab will list normal levels between 300 and 1100.
So this is a free testosterone range, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And you can imagine if you're at 301, they're going to tell you you're normal, but normal levels goes all the way up to 1100.
So, and but it's funny too, because it's based on age. And like it's anywhere between like 18 and 30, right?
Right.
And then, but 300 for an 18-year-old is very much not normal,
right?
But exactly. 1100 for a 30-year-old is also not normal.
Yeah,
it's outstanding. It's like Olympic athlete level,
right?
Testosterone,
right?
So it's weird variance.
A huge gap in between those numbers, and that's where that study I was telling you about the Alzheimer's, and that doctor's his name is Dale Brennison, that published that study, and the biggest therapy he was giving was metabolic optimization. So looking at these blood markers and not being at the bare minimum of normal, but optimizing them at the higher level of normal, right? So vitamin D is a huge supplement that could be included. Things like resveratrol, right? Found in red wine, right?
So I've heard a lot about this lately. This is a Rhonda Patrick thing I've heard, and people are actually taking this as a supplement, right?
Yeah.
And this is very new. People are injecting it even just to for
didn't even
recovery.
know
Oh
that.
yeah, you got a lot of people that are getting into that. They're figuring out ways to take it like intramuscular like sort of injections for recovery, whatever else, and for I guess protein synthesis and different things like that. But it's Dr. Rhonda Patrick started talking about it, and it went on Joe Rogan Experience, and then there's been like an explosion of people like that are into resveratrol now.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a whole thing now. So
interesting. It's probably more direct injecting it. I didn't know you could do that.
I don't know that you can. I don't know that you, but
somebody found a way.
No, like whatever goes on Joe Rogan, like because
people jump on the bandwagon.
Oh my! So I know these guys in Mountain View with a cryo chamber therapy place, and half of their business comes from the Joe Rogan Experience.
Really?
Whenever he talks about something, it blows up.
I remember when she talked about the cryotherapy.
So cryotherapy. So I do cryo all the time. I do the sensory deprivation tank. I just did it on Friday for a couple hours. We just went in.
I've never tried that. That'd be interesting to try.
If you're in,
that'd probably be great for post concussion.
It is. People with neck injuries, you want the little floaty pillow because you're in this very like salient, very salty water. So you're floating at the top. So if you're used to your neck supporting your head, but in this float tank, it doesn't have to, and it takes a little while for your neck to let go.
Yeah,
my neck's fucked. So I gotta get the floaty pillow. I'm like, this is terrible. Let me go.
That added support.
Yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely. So my head going straight back. It's like, no, that's not okay. Just add some more salt or give me the fucking pillow.
Man, maybe I should partner up with that place. That'd be good. Cross-referring patients and stuff. Right?
So the place in Mountain View, right by my office, actually has it's a chiropractic office, but they have the cryo chamber therapy in there, and the sessions are 3 minutes long. And as long as you keep that liquid nitrogen full, you're going to get business like crazy. Wow. So on the business side of it though, if you're doing the flow tank, those are 1 hour sessions minimum. So it's like diminishing returns because like the longer they stay, you kind of got to discount the rate because some people want to stay overnight.
What? Really? It's like Daredevil thing.
It's not Daredevil thing if they're augmenting the experience with some other sort of thing, right?
Interesting.
Yeah. So you figure when you deprive your brain of external stimulus, like you're saying, like no sound, no sight.
It'd be like maximizing the effects of.
But what if they were on something else?
Yeah.
And then because they say there's a psychedelic effect already of being just in the tank with nothing.
Yeah.
But what if you added something?
Yeah, for real.
And then a lot of places offer like 4 hour sessions, 5 hour overnight sessions.
Wow.
I wonder why they offer that. Are you gonna do TM? Are you gonna do transcendental meditations for 4 hours?
For real. I did not know that.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, so a lot of these float tanks or sensory deprivation tanks or places, the businesses, they offer like these multi-hour things. And you just float around, just don't freak the fuck out.
Yeah.
But they have to have attendants on site. So versus your chiropractic business, if you just had, you invested in the tank, you have somebody operating it.
Yeah.
And then they also have these spot things. So you do like cryofacial and like cryo spot therapy, right? It's to put it directly on the neck as opposed to the entire body.
Yeah.
And like that's an additional revenue stream that these guys are doing.
Of course.
So it's like it's very popular right now for chiropractic businesses. Yeah. And then even like massage therapy places to also have a cryo chamber therapy tank.
Interesting.
And thanks to Joe Rogan Experience,
it's blowing up.
Blowing the fuck up.
Man.
There's like 2 in Sunnyvale now.
Jeez.
if there's two of anything in Sunnyvale. Like the minute we had 2 jiu-jitsu gyms in Sunnyvale, I was like, all right, jiu-jitsu's popular.
Right.
We barely have like 2 Italian places in Sunnyvale.
Jeez.
You could barely get 2 plates of spaghetti in Sunnyvale that are not at Denny's. Right. So to get 2 jiu-jitsu places and then 2 cryo chamber therapy places, for like a little suburb town, like it's a real thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I'm gonna have to try those out. I've never done that.
It's just breathing exercises. If you can go through a yoga session and handle deep breathing, you can handle cryo. It's 3 minutes. You ain't gonna die.
Right. Yeah. So resveratrol, acai berry extract. A lot of studies on acai extracts, also helping the antioxidant concentration in those. Very good for taming down that inflammatory cascade in the brain.
So not the just the acai bowl, like the 2,000 calories full of sugar, like the actual extract, right?
The actual extract.
Yeah, like most people are like, I just had acai, it's so healthy. Like you just had ice cream.
Right. So you've been to Brazil. I went to Brazil in 2009. I backpacked around South America, and the acai out there is like black.
Yeah. So
dark, it's black. And I have not found anywhere close to it out here.
No, it's purple ice cream here. They throw in tons of granola and the honey and
cut it with coconut milk or almond milk or
the guarana, the guarana soda, just whatever they can get, because they get the Sambazon packets and you stick it in the blender and you throw in whatever other bullshit.
Yeah,
because there's been a couple trucks that do acai, and when they first started their businesses, it was like what you described. It was like really dark purple, and then once they realized they couldn't make any money, it was like lighter and lighter and lighter. Like, okay, they figured it out.
Start cutting it with other ingredients.
Exactly. They're like, it went from authentic to like profitable.
For reals. All right. So the last part of the whole treatment prevention thing is high intensity interval training, right? So when we talked about the decrease in testosterone and growth hormone, the high intensity interval training has been shown to actually increase testosterone, increase growth hormone. And so that's something you start implementing maybe about week 2 when symptoms have gone away. You're still in the recovery phase, but symptoms have subsided to the point where you can start being active, right? You still don't want contact at that point, but you can start doing high interval training, always to metabolic capacity, right? So if you start training and you train to the point where you start experiencing symptoms, that's where you want to stop. And that'll be your standard. And you always train to that point until your endurance increases, and then you increase from there. Okay. Right? So a lot of stuff guys can do. I work with, like I said, a lot of the grapplers. We sponsor a couple fighters out of a couple different gyms, and I try to stress the amount of preventative things they can do to avoid any kind of traumatic brain or post-concussion syndromes, right? Even just from the fight, from their training. And unfortunately, I don't think a lot of people take it too seriously until they've already had a concussion and they're experiencing the symptoms. But there's tons and tons you can do to control that.
Yeah, most people don't. Most of these guys are going to push it until they can't, right?
Yeah.
And because that's the nature of it. I mean, everybody goes as hard as they can. And I mean, it's really common for a lot of the Bay Area gyms to follow the AKA model of sparring. We spar hard. Yeah. That's been something that's been criticized by some of the other gyms and criticized by some of the MMA pundits and like the so-called experts and stuff like that. Like as a lot of our guys are injured and X, Y, and Z, but it's combat sports. There's going to be injuries. You're putting 4-ounce gloves on people, which is silly from this perspective, right? So for television's sake, if you put a 4-ounce glove on somebody, what do? You take away blood. Mm-hmm. Some of the blood, most of the blood, right? Mm-hmm. But all you're really doing is giving somebody the ability to ball your fist up because it's wrapped as tight as possible in tape, and throw as hard as you possibly can with no repercussion that your hand's going to break. but your job is to cause traumatic brain injury. That's your job.
Yeah.
Throwing that punch, your job is to cause a concussion, right? Because that's a knockout. You get made more money for that, right? Up until just very recently, they called it a knockout bonus.
Yeah.
Your job is to limit the longevity and quality of someone else's life. That's the job. There's no other way to describe it, but your job is to make their life worse.
Yeah.
Period. If you take the gloves off, you're going to cut people. Right? These are superficial scars to the forehead, to the eye, to the nose, to the mouth. You're going to bleed. But you're not going to throw punches fucking hard because your bones in your hand will fucking break.
Yeah.
So, but this won't work because you decided that you want to do business with Fox. Fox pushes their fights on free TV. On free TV, you can't have people bleeding because it's barbaric. It's barbaric to bleed, but to limit the actual lifespan of another individual by way of throwing a 4-ounce glove at their fucking head because you don't bleed, but you're having a concussive blow with every single shot.
Yeah.
Right. It's this weird sort of paradigm where it's like, it's okay if people on the other side don't have to be squeamish, if they have to watch it like a NASCAR race.
Yeah.
And, everybody watches NASCAR for the crashes because they're just going in a circle, right? I'm not trying to undermine whatever the fuck they do. I mean, it's very technical driving for a long period of time, but people watch it for the crashes. A lot of people do, right?
Yeah. Like bullfights.
Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people watch UFC for the knockouts, and they're bored if it's a technical fight. They're bored if there's jiu-jitsu. They're all on the ground. It's boring. Well, you might suck at life, sir, because they're doing a lot right now.
They are.
However, the job is literally to limit the quality and longevity of life of the other human being. You're trying to cause a traumatic brain injury. That's your job.
Yep.
And your job on the other side is to not have one.
Right.
That's it. Yep. And to cause one to the other guy. So if you if you remove the gloves, you're not going to throw as hard because the first time you do, the first guy that does it and breaks their hand spectacular fashion, I'm sorry, a hand, you fix the hand.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
It'll suck for a couple of days. Yeah. And the rehab, there's physical therapy, like, it's a hand.
Yeah.
There's lots of little bones. Most of it you can't do shit for.
Right.
You ever broke a finger? You put it back and that's it.
Yeah, put some tape on it.
You splint that fucker.
Yep.
If you see an x-ray of what my fingers look like, they don't look like fingers no more. I promise.
Man.
They're like angled all weird and each digit points a different direction. I broke all of them multiple times. It's fine.
Yeah. My toes are starting to look like that from judo.
See? But it doesn't affect your cognitive function. It doesn't affect how you respond. It doesn't affect your emotions. No. It doesn't affect that you might kill people.
Right.
Because that happens,
your
right?
Ability to live.
Yeah, the quality of life. So just if you ditch the gloves, you don't have this problem anymore. No. But they're not going to do that because, dear God, blood on television. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. What's on the news?
For reals. For reals.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's the same. It's the FDA thing again.
Yeah.
Everybody's fucking crazy.
Going back to that, man.
Double fucking weird standards in public culture. We decided the government's our babysitter and fuck it. We want zero personal responsibility.
Exactly.
Give me convenience or give me death.
Just tell me what to do and I'll do it and won't ask any questions.
No, the easiest evidence is look at your fucking iPhone. You can use a fingerprint now to pay for anything.
Yeah.
When did we decide that biometrics are an okay way of identifying ourselves for payment?
Yeah.
When did we fucking vote on that?
Yeah.
When was that okay?
Yeah.
But we did it. We let it slide right through our fucking fingers. Like, just give me convenience in favor of fucking any sort of critical thinking, any sort of security, any sort of anything else. Just give me convenience. That's it. I just want sloth. So I'm surprised people are even worried about weight loss. I'm surprised it's even a thing.
Yeah. Right?
It's shocking that people even give a fuck. It should be obvious they're fat.
Yeah. Right.
Look what we do. We fucking worship machines.
Yeah. And the foods we eat, the grocery store aisles.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm not shocked.
It's crazy.
I ain't surprised, motherfuckers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sad. It's sad. And working in healthcare, it's more sad because it's insane. I was recently researching cancer and, the rates of cancer today, you know what they are? They're insane. According to cancer.org, 1 in 3 women will have cancer and 1 in 2 men will have cancer. And that blows my mind. And I mean, we didn't even get into that topic much. Maybe another day, but it's insane, and a lot of it has been linked to environmental factors, environmental toxin exposure, a lot of different things, and nothing's been done about it.
Just remove every prostate, testicle, and breast beforehand.
Yeah.
It will all be fine.
It's preventative.
That's it.
It's preventative.
It's preventative. Just remove all of it.
Yeah.
Yep. And then we'll just all get brain cancer. It'll be fine.
Right? From the cell phones. It's crazy. It's crazy. And it's all documented. It's all researched. I mean, the president put together a whole cancer panel when he first came into office, and they basically outlined for him why America is suffering from so much cancer. And hasn't done anything about it.
No.
Right? And it's crazy.
It's not all that surprising.
Right? And people who are more interested in that stuff want to learn more about it, they can check out my website. You know, I said already, Bay Area healthandwellness.com. I got an Instagram, Dr.Ernesto_Medina_DC. That's my Instagram. I got a Facebook business page where I'm always posting the latest in research and latest clinical outcomes and studies. A lot of it is controversial, but I mean, it's all there. People just got to take the time to educate themselves and read about it.
Well, controversy is good. I don't have cable, so I don't give a shit.
There you go.
So I think more people should cut the cord and just think for themselves and go out and find real information and do a bit of deductive reasoning on their own.
Exactly.
Use their brain a little bit.
The more you research and read, the more you realize we are screwed.
Oh yeah, it's completely fucked.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've said a lot. I think we've said it all for tonight. We've put in a solid 2.5. I want to thank Ernesto for coming on. I want to thank fucking Dojo Outfitters, Andy. Thanks for everything. And I want to thank Leo Optics. We'll see you guys soon. We'll be in LA this weekend, so we're going to have some fun. So rock and roll. Clint Cronin here, Ernesto Medina, DC, the doctors in the house. We're rocking and rolling. And thanks for everybody for listening, supporting. Check me out at Clint Cronin.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, Ernesto.